Forget one for all. What if Deku's biggest challenge wasn't Shigaraki, but a clandestine mission into Tartarus, with a monstrous secret? Imagine him not as a symbol of peace, but as a silent, deadly ghoul weaving through the most secure prison on Earth. Could his hero's heart survive the terrifying power of Kaneki's Kakuja and Kagyun? And I have a patron, so if you consider joining it to support my channel, that would be great. It's not necessary, but you can get early access to my videos now. Let's jump right into video.
Izuku Midoriya used to believe there were only two kinds of people in the world. People who were born with power, and people who learned to live without it. He'd made peace with being the second kind, at least the version of peace that looked like smiling while your heart cracked quietly in the background. That day, the day the sludge villain attacked, was supposed to end the same way most of his days ended: bruised pride, burning lungs, and a promise to himself that he'd train harder anyway, even if training didn't change genetics. But fate didn't just change direction. It flipped the table. The alley that smelled like fear. The alley behind the convenience store was narrow, damp, and full of the kind of trash that always made Izuku's mind catalog details without permission. 1 crushed energy drink can. 2 cigarette butts. A lost hero merch keychain. And Bakugo Katsuki's voice. "Get off me." Izuku's feet moved before his brain finished the thought. He didn't decide to run. His body had already decided, like it always did when someone needed help. That was the cruelest part about his dream. His instincts were heroic even when the world said his biology wasn't. He turned the corner and saw it. The sludge villain, like a living oil spill, had Bakugo's face half submerged. The villain's body wasn't a body. It was a choking, shifting maw. SS with eyes that appeared and vanished like bubbles. Bakugo's hands were trapped. His mouth was open in a scream that couldn't fully escape. And for one flashing second, Izuku didn't see a bully. He saw a person drowning. His arms moved. His notebook dropped. He grabbed at the sludge like an idiot trying to hold smoke. The sludge felt cold and wrong, slick, heavy, and alive. It climbed his wrists immediately. Izuku's lungs tightened. His vision tunneled. The villain's voice gurgled in his ear like a drain trying to speak. "Ah, look at this. Another hero hopeful. Cute." Izuku tried to pull back. But the sludge yanked him forward like a tide. His mouth opened for air. Something wet and suffocating slammed over his face. He inhaled, and the world became black. Not metaphorical black, real black. A pressure-sealed darkness that pressed into his nostrils, his throat, his chest, until every breath became a war he was losing. His mind screamed 100 facts at him at once. Sludge is in your airway. Your ribs can't expand properly. Carbon dioxide is building. You have seconds, not minutes. He thrashed. He punched. His fingers found nothing solid. His heartbeat hammered. His eyes burned. His thoughts began to fracture into images. All Might's smile, his mom's worried face, Bakugo's furious glare, the word, hero, written on every page of his notebooks like a prayer. Then a new sensation slid under everything else. A whisper in his bones. Not a voice. A hunger. It wasn't like being hungry before dinner. It wasn't even like being starving after training. It was primal, chemical, an alarm system older than morality. Eat. Izuku couldn't understand the thought, because he didn't have anything to eat. He had sludge in his lungs. He had panic in his veins. He had fear in his mouth. Eat. His body convulsed. And somewhere deep inside him, deeper than quirk dreams and schoolyard humiliation, something answered. To the eye that wasn't his. The first change was in his vision. His left eye felt like it had been dipped into ice. His right eye felt like it had been lit on fire. The difference was so sharp that for a second he thought his eyeball had ruptured. The darkness peeled away in layers. Not because the sludge moved. Because Izuku's senses expanded. He could smell things. No, he could smell everything. Bakugo's sweat. The metallic sting of blood from a bitten lip. Engine oil from a nearby parked scooter. The faint citrus of a cleaning product that had been used on the alley wall days ago. And under it all, heartbeats. 1, 2, 3, no, there were more. People on the main street. People in cars. People in apartments above. Their living rhythms pulsed through the air like invisible drums. Izuku's brain couldn't process it fast enough. He gagged. The sludge in his mouth surged. The villain laughed, amused. Whoa, Kid, you're shaking. That's not gonna help. The villain's words cut off. Because something in the sludge twitched. Not like a wave, like a muscle. And Izuku's spine lit up with a sensation so sharp it stole sound from the world. A release. A rupture behind his shoulder blades. A pressure valve blowing open. He felt something tear through fabric. Not painfully. More like something that had been trapped finally breaking free. Izuku's hoodie split. 4 shapes burst outward in a blur, fast, whipping, red-black arcs that snapped through the air like living ropes. For half a heartbeat, even the sludge villain froze. The shapes curved, flexed, and stabilized, forming into thick, sinewy appendages that moved with a mind of their own. They were not arms. They were not tails. They were. Izuku didn't have the vocabulary for it. But the alley did. The alley understood predators. The appendages drove into the sludge. Not to punch, to pierce, to anchor, to pull. The villain shrieked as if something had bitten its core. What is that? Izuku tried to inhale. Air finally hit his lungs. He coughed violently, vomiting black muck onto the ground. His body heaved. He fell to his knees. His left eye flickered, and the world sharpened again. Izuku's reflection flashed in a broken piece of glass by the alley wall. His eye. His left eye. The sclera was black. The iris was red. A single, terrifying color scheme that screamed, "Monster," in every language. His stomach dropped. His mind couldn't accept what he was seeing. Then the sludge villain lunged again. Trying to re-swallow him, to smother whatever new thing Izuku had become. The appendages reacted before Izuku did. They whipped forward, striking the sludge mass with the force of a battering ram. Not elegant. Not controlled. Raw. The villain slammed into the alley wall and splattered like a thrown bucket of oil. Bakugo dropped onto the pavement, gasping. Izuku stared at his own hands. They were shaking. His nails looked slightly sharper. His skin felt too warm, like his body was running a fever. And the hunger returned, stronger. It coiled around his ribs like a serpent. Eat, eat, eat. Izuku's head snapped toward Bakugo. And that was the moment he realized something truly horrifying. His instincts didn't just want to save people anymore. A part of him just looked at a living human being and registered them as. No. His throat closed. His entire body locked in panic. Izuku shoved himself backward, away from Bakugo like proximity alone was dangerous. Bakugo, still half choking, saw the tentacles, saw the eye, and for the first time in his life, Katsuki Bakugo looked genuinely afraid. What the hell are you? Izuku tried to answer, but the only sound that came out was a strangled, broken gasp. The symbol arrives, and stops smiling. A shadow fell across the alley. A wind pressure slammed down like a giant hand. All Might landed at the entrance. Huge and bright even in the grimy alley, like someone had dropped the sun into a trash can. But his smile didn't land this time. Because the scene wasn't normal. The sludge villain was splattered. Bakugo was on the ground. And Izuku Midoriya was kneeling, trembling, with 4 red-black appendages unfurled behind him like the wings of something that shouldn't exist. All Might's eyes narrowed. He didn't shout. He didn't pose. He simply spoke, low and sharp. Midoriya. Izuku heard his name like it was coming through water. His senses were still too loud. Heartbeats were everywhere. His own pulse was a siren in his skull. And the hunger was screaming now that a powerful, living, healthy human was in the alley. All Might took one step forward. Izuku's appendages flexed. Ny movement, just one involuntary twitch, shifted the entire tone of the air. All Might wasn't seeing a kid with a quirk. All Might was seeing an unknown threat. A biological anomaly. A potential disaster. He glanced at Bakugo. Young Bakugo. Can you stand? Bakugo staggered up, coughing, furious and shaken at the same time. I'm fine. Just get this freak. All Might. Izuku tried to say, but it came out wrong. His voice sounded raw, almost feral. All Might's gaze snapped back to him. Izuku hated the way All Might's eyes hardened. Hated the way the hero didn't know what to do with him. Because Izuku didn't know either. The sludge villain reformed, panicked now. Okay, I'm out. This wasn't part of the plan. All Might moved fast. One punch, one gust, one clean capture. His attention kept flicking back to Izuku, like he was trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. "Midoriya," All Might said again, very carefully, "are you in control?" Izuku wanted to say yes. He wanted to say I'm still me. But then his gaze drifted, just for a second, to the curve of Bakugo's neck. And his body reacted with a hungry shiver. Izuku's own stomach lurched in disgust. He clasped at his mouth with both hands like he could physically stop the thought from escaping. All Might saw it. All Might's jaw tightened. He made a decision. Not cruel. Not hateful. But decisive in the way T. Had adults make decisions when danger exists and they cannot gamble. "All units," All Might spoke into his communicator, voice controlled, "I need medical support and a containment team at my location. Immediate." Izuku's eyes went wide. Containment. That word didn't belong to heroes. That word belonged to disasters. He tried to stand, but his knees buckled. The appendages caught him, bracing him like extra limbs. And that's when Izuku realized the worst part. They weren't just growing out of him. They were listening to him. They were an extension of his nervous system. His body had rewritten itself in minutes. And he had no idea why. The world learns a new word, biohazard. The first police hero arrived with a cautious stance and a hand hovering near their restraint gear. More heroes came after, some with capture weapons. Some with medical kits, all with expressions that tried to hide fear behind professionalism. Izuku heard their heartbeats. Fast. Uneven. He heard whispered words too. Is that a mutant quirk? Those aren't, like, normal appendages. What the? He's a kid, though. Doesn't matter. Look at his. Izuku's vision blurred. The alley began to tilt. He'd been suffocating, then panicking. Then changing, and now his body was running on whatever fuel terror could provide. His mouth tasted like sludge and copper. He swallowed and gagged again, because the taste of normal air felt wrong. Everything felt wrong. All Might knelt a careful distance away, lowering himself to eye level without stepping into striking range. That fact alone made Izuku's chest ache. All Might didn't trust him. All Might had no reason to. "Listen to me, young Midoriya," All Might said softly, the kind of softness people used around wild animals. "No one here wants to hurt you. But you need to breathe. Focus on my voice." Izuku wanted to laugh at how impossible that was. Focus. His senses were a hurricane. He could smell fear like smoke. He could hear the tiny tremor in a rookie hero's fingers as they adjusted a restraint. He could hear the sludge villain's muffled cursing inside a containment jar. He could hear Bakugo yelling at someone outside the alley, angry words had sounded like armor trying to cover up terror. And under all of it, eat. Izuku's hands trembled harder. His appendages curled in, defensive. All Might raised both hands slowly, showing he wasn't attacking. "Medical," someone called. "We've got sedatives." Izuku's head snapped toward the voice. Sedatives. Needles. Knives. Izuku's mind flashed to an image he didn't understand. White lights, metal tables, voices saying, "Specimen." His breathing spiked. The appendages flared outward again, instinctively, like a threat display. Heroes tensed. Someone aimed a capture net. All Might's voice sharpened. "Hold. No sudden moves." But it was too late. Izuku's body made the choice for him. He launched backward, not toward the heroes, not toward the street, upward. The appendages slammed into the wall, piercing brick like it was cardboard. And pulled. Izuku shot up the alley wall like a spider with rocket boosters. He clung to the vertical surface, chest heaving, wide-eyed, terrified. He looked down, and saw the holes his appendages had made. Concrete crumbled. He hadn't tried to destroy anything. He'd just moved, and that movement had been inhuman. All Might stared up at him, stunned. For a second, Izuku saw something on All Might's face that hurt worse than fear. Grief. Like the symbol of peace was watching a kid's dream break in real time. "Midoriya," All Might whispered, almost to himself. Izuku's lips moved. He tried to say, "I don't know what's happening." But all that came out was a choking sound. His stomach clenched. The hunger twisted again, sharp enough that his vision spotted. He pressed his forehead to the wall. And then the world went dim. 5 white rooms and smart eyes. When Izuku woke, he expected pain. He expected handcuffs. He expected to open his eyes and see prison bars. Instead, he saw a ceiling that was too clean. A medical room, bright and sterile, but not like a normal hospital. This room had reinforced corners and a faint hum in the walls. Containment. His arms were strapped, not painfully, but securely, to a padded bed. His legs too. His first instinct was to panic. His second instinct was worse. He realized he was awake and he could smell the person stand ding behind him without turning his head. Old paper, mint tea, and something sharp, intelligent. "I see you're awake," a calm voice said. Izuku's head turned slowly. On the other side of a reinforced glass panel stood a small figure with an unsettlingly relaxed posture. A mouse. A principal mouse. Nezu's red eyes gleamed with curiosity. Beside him stood Recovery Girl, hands on her hips like she'd already decided she was annoyed with the universe. And behind them, tall enough to block the hallway light, All Might. But not in his bright, bulky form. In his thin form. Izuku's breath caught. He'd never seen All Might like that. He tried to sit up. The restraints held. His appendages, his kagun, weren't visible, but he could feel them. They were folded somewhere under his skin like coiled muscles waiting to spring. "All Might," Izuku rasped. All Might's thin face tightened. Recovery Girl leaned forward, voice brisk. Yes, you saw him. Congratulations. Try not to faint again." Izuku blinked, confused. Nezu tilted his head, the movement oddly human. "We're going to ask you some questions, Midoriya Izuku." Izuku swallowed. His throat felt dry, like he hadn't had water in days. He realized something else. The hunger was still there. But quieter. Like someone had stuffed a screaming radio under a pillow. He glanced down, noticing a clear tube leading to his arm. A drip. A pale, reddish fluid. Izuku's stomach rolled, then, unbelievably, settled. He stared at the drip like it was both salvation and horror. Recovery Girl followed his gaze. "That," she said, "is the only reason you're not trying to bite through your own restraints right now." Izuku's eyes widened. What?" Nezu's expression remained polite in the way that made Izuku even more nervous. "Your blood chemistry is unusual. Your cells are proliferating at a rate I have only seen in extreme quirk mutations." Izuku shook his head, weak. "It's not, I don't have a quirk." All Might's eyes flickered. Nezu's ears twitched as if he found that interesting. "Yes, that is what you've always." Girl tapped a clipboard. "And yet, your body disagrees." Izuku tried to remember the alley. The sludge, the suffocation, the tentacles, the eye. His breath sped up. Recovery Girl pointed a finger. "Don't spiral. You spike your heart rate, your things respond. I don't want to replace another wall." Izuku froze. Nezu stepped closer to the glass. "Let's establish something important, Midoriya Izuku. We are not treating you as a villain." Izuku's shoulders loosened by a fraction. Nezu continued, gently, "We are treating you as a biohazard." That fraction snapped back into place. The word hit Izuku like a punch. Biohazard. Like toxic waste. Like a virus. Like something people kept in sealed containers with warning labels. Zuku's hands clenched against the restraints. "But I'm not, I didn't." All Might finally spoke, voice quiet, exhausted. "We know you didn't choose this." Izuku looked at him desperately. "Then why am I tied down?" All Might didn't flinch from the question. He answered honestly. "Because we don't know what you are yet." Izuku's throat tightened. Nezu's voice remained calm, almost soothing. "Your body contains an unfamiliar type of cell structure. It behaves like a predatory organ system, high regeneration, rapid muscle response, enhanced sensory input. And the eye change suggests a neurological shift." Izuku's mouth went dry. Recovery Girl sighed. "And the hunger. Don't forget the hunger." Izuku's stomach twisted at the memory of looking at Bakugo and he turned his face away, ashamed. I didn't want that." All Might stepped forward. The glass panel slid open a few inches, just enough that his voice felt closer. All Might didn't step into the room. But he tried to reach Izuku with words instead of hands. "I saw your eyes," All Might said softly. "Not the red and black. Your eyes. You were terrified. Even with that power, you were still trying not to hurt anyone." Izuku's lip trembled. Nezu watched like a scientist and a guardian at the same time. "We have taken blood samples. Tissue samples. Skin scans. We are comparing your biology to everything we have access to, quirk databases, medical anomalies. Even classified materials. Izuku's voice cracked. So what am I? Recovery Girl answered first, blunt as ever. Not a normal quirk user. Nezu's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Not a standard mutant type, either. Quote. All Might's hands clenched at his sides. Nezu spoke the conclusion like he was naming a new category. Midoriya Izuku, you may not be a quirk user at all. Izuku stared at him. Nezu continued, as if explaining a math problem. Quirks are genetic. Quirk factors are detectable. Your biology is foreign. Not alien in the science fiction sense. But different from human baseline. Your cells behave like an entirely separate organ system that has integrated itself into your body. Izuku's mind struggled to keep up. Different species. Foreign biology. Biohazard. His dream was already fragile. Now it felt like it was dissolving. But, I'm still me, he whispered. Recovery Girl's expression softened by a millimeter. That depends. Izuku's blood went cold. Depends on what? Nezu's voice lowered. On whether your mind can remain the driver, or whether your instincts will eventually take the wheel. Izuku's breath hitched. Because he'd already felt it. The instinct. The hunger that didn't care about heroism. The part of him that had looked at heartbeats and thought. Eat. Izuku's eyes squeezed shut. A tear slid sideways into his hair. All Might's voice broke, just slightly. We are going to help you, young Midoriya. Izuku shook his head, trembling. How? If I'm a monster. You are not a monster, All Might said, and this time there was steel in it. Not as a hero speaking to a villain. As a man speaking to a frightened child. You are a boy who ran into danger without a quirk because someone needed help. Izuku swallowed hard. Nezu nodded once. However, he added, because Nezu was incapable of ignoring reality, we must also keep others safe. Including you. Recovery Girl tapped the drip line. This fluid we're testing, synthetic nutrients, modified plasma derivatives. It's not pleasant, but it calms the hunger. Stabilizes your regeneration. Keeps you from crashing. Izuku stared at the drip. It's blood, he whispered. Not exactly, Recovery Girl said quickly. Don't dramatize it. Think of it as medical nutrition with a red color problem. That should have been funny. Izuku couldn't laugh. He looked down at himself again. At his strapped arms. At the white room. At the faint hum of containment systems. He had never felt smaller. All Might stayed by the glass, watching him like he was trying to memorize Izuku's face. Lee. Keihi was afraid this version of Izuku might vanish. Izuku's throat tightened. Am I going to jail? Nezu answered before All Might could. No. Izuku blinked. Nezu's tail swished. But you are going to be monitored. Recovery Girl crossed her arms. And you're going to listen. Because if you don't, you'll hurt someone, and then you'll hate yourself forever. And I don't have the patience for that. Izuku swallowed. His voice came out tiny. I don't want to hurt anyone. All Might nodded. Then we start there. Nezu smiled, small, sharp, and oddly kind. Good. Because I have a proposal. Izuku looked up. Nezu's eyes gleamed. If your abilities cannot be detected by standard quirk surveillance, if your biology truly sits outside our systems. All Might's gaze sharpened, as if he already saw where this was going. Nezu continued, almost conversational. Then you may be the one person who can go where quirk users cannot. Izuku's heart thudded. Not excitement. Not yet. Just fear mixed with a new, heavy possibility. A hero dream, twisted into something darker. Something that lived in shadows. Recovery Girl grumbled. Don't get ahead of yourself, furball. The kid hasn't even stood up with out his spine trying to sprout extra limbs. Nezu's smile didn't fade. Of course. Step 1 is stabilization. Step 2 is education. Step 3, All Might finished the thought quietly, is deciding what kind of hero you can still be. Izuku stared at them, at the symbol of peace in a fragile body, at a tiny genius animal with red eyes, at an old nurse who looked like she could punch fate itself. And he realized, with a sinking clarity, the world had not taken his dream away. It had simply changed the price. Izuku's left eye prickled. The black and red vision flickered at the edges. The hunger whispered again, faint but persistent. Eat. Izuku swallowed hard. Then, with his voice shaking but steady enough to be heard, he said the only thing that still felt true. I want to save people. All Might's eyes softened. Nezu's gaze sharpened. Recovery Girl sighed like she'd just accepted a lifelong headache. And somewhere deep inside Izuku's spine, something coiled, not in hunger this time, but in readiness. Because the metamorphosis wasn't just physical. It was a mission being born. And whether Izuku liked it or not, the world had just created a new kind of weapon. A boy who didn't fit the system. A boy with the heart of a hero. And the body of something else entirely. Phase 1, the metamorphosis and the mission. Izuku learned very quickly that there were two kinds of silence. The RST kind was peaceful, like late-night rain tapping against a window. The second kind was engineered, the kind built into thick walls, reinforced glass, and security systems designed to keep the inside from becoming the outside. His room had the second kind. Even the air felt monitored. The lights didn't hum like normal lights. They purred, steady and controlled, like a machine pretending to be gentle. He's ceiling. Trying not to think about the restraints that had been on him earlier, or the fact that he'd only been released from them when Recovery Girl decided his vitals were less likely to do something stupid. The drip line still ran into his arm. The pale red fluid pulsed slowly down the tube, drop by drop. Every time he watched it, his stomach twisted in a strange loop of relief and disgust. Relief, because the hunger quieted when the fluid flowed. Disgust, because his body seemed grateful for something that resembled blood. He swallowed and forced his gaze away. On the other side of the reinforced glass, there was movement in the hall. Quiet footsteps. A shadow that paused, like someone was standing there, debating whether to enter. Izuku's enhanced hearing caught the smallest shift in fabric. Then the door slid open with a soft, controlled hiss. All Might stepped in, not the shining, towering symbol of peace. The thin version, sharp cheekbones, hollow ribs under a loose shirt. And eyes that looked like they'd seen too many impossible problems and were tired of pretending they were easy. He didn't smile. Izuku's chest tightened anyway. All Might, he said, voice rough, still not quite his own. All Might nodded once, slow, like he didn't want to spook him. Young Midoriya. Izuku tried to sit up straighter. His body responded too quickly, muscles tightening with a predator's efficiency. Then easing when he realized there was no danger. All Might noticed. He always noticed. A flicker crossed his face, concern, not fear this time, but something close. How are you feeling? All Might asked. Izuku almost laughed. It came out as a weak breath instead. I don't know, he admitted. I'm hungry. But not as bad. He nodded toward the drip line. All Might's gaze followed it. His mouth tightened. Recovery Girl's temporary solution. Izuku hesitated. It's safe. All Might's voice softened. It's as safe as we can make it with what little we understand. Nezu is having it analyzed continuously. You are being monitored continuously. Izuku's fingers curled into the blanket. So, I'm a project. All Might flinched, just slightly. Izuku hated that he'd said it like that, hated how bitter it sounded. But bitterness didn't erase reality. He'd woken up in a reinforced room with containment measures. That wasn't how normal kids got treated. All Might exhaled slowly. You are not a project. Izuku looked at him, trying to decide if he believed it. All Might stepped closer, not too close, and sat in the chair beside the bed, as if positioning himself at a respectful distance was a deliberate act of trust. I came, All Might said, to tell you the truth. Izuku's stomach dropped. About what I am. All Might paused. About what we think you are. And about what is happening, outside this room. Izuku's senses sharpened, automatically. Outside. Something big. All Might rubbed a hand over his face, the gesture tired and human. Nezu and Recovery Girl are working on your condition. I have also contacted people who know more about biological anomalies than most. Izuku's eyes widened. Like who? All Might didn't answer directly. Which was an answer on its own. Then All Might leaned forward slightly. There is a prison, he said, built to hold the worst villains in Japan. Izuku swallowed. Tartarus. All Might nodded. Izuku had heard about it in the way. Civilians heard about hurricanes, distant, terrifying, and always described with the same warning tone. You don't want to be near it. All Might's eyes hardened. Tartarus has been under increased threat. Izuku's heart thumped. Because the moment All Might said it, Izuku could almost feel it, like the city itself held its breath when that name came up. All for one, Izuku whispered without meaning to. All Might's gaze sharpened. He didn't correct him, so Izuku knew he was right. All Might's voice lowered. We have reason to believe his network, his supporters, his hidden systems, are planning something. Izuku's throat tightened. A breakout. All Might nodded once, grim. Izuku tried to breathe steadily, but fear curled tight in his ribs. A breakout meant chaos. A breakout meant people dying. It meant villains flooding the streets. And it meant All Might, fighting. In his state, Izuku's mouth went dry. You can't. I know, All Might said quietly, cutting him off gently. That is why we are trying to prevent it before it begins. Izuku stared at him. All Might's gaze held his. Then, slowly, All Might said, and that brings me to you. Izuku felt the air change in the room. Not literally. Emotionally. Like a door was opening onto something he didn't want to see but couldn't avoid. I don't understand, Izuku said, voice small. All Might's jaw clenched. Tartarus is built to detect quirks. Quirk factors. Power signatures. It has layers of systems that can identify most abilities the moment they approach. Izuku remembered what Nezu had said. Your biology is foreign. All Might continued. If a villain with a quirk tries to infiltrate, alarms trigger before they even reach the inner gates. Izuku's skin prickled. And if a hero with a quirk tries to infiltrate, All Might added. The same systems identify them too. Izuku swallowed. All Might's voice dropped to a near whisper. But your abilities are not a quirk. Izuku's breath hitched. All Might looked down at Izuku's arm, the drip line, the pale red fluid. Your power, All Might said, carefully choosing words, is biological. Not genetic in the quirk sense. It may not register on their detection systems. Izuku stared at him, mind racing. All Might's next words hit like a weight. That makes you something Tartarus has never planned for. Izuku's hands trembled under the blanket. A weapon. A loophole. A ghost. I'm not a. Izuku started. All Might raised a hand. I am not ordering you. I am not forcing you. Izuku froze, hearing the sincerity. All Might's eyes looked older than they should have. I am asking you, All Might said. Because the stakes are too high for pride, and too high for comfort. Izuku's throat tightened. Asking me to do what? All Might took a slow breath. There is a secure vault inside Tartarus, he said. We have intelligence that a data drive exists within it. A physical drive, not connected to the network. It contains codes, routes, contacts, systems, pieces of all for one's hidden infrastructure. Izuku's mind clicked. A network map. A blueprint of villain support. The kind of information that could prevent disasters before they happened. All Might continued. If the villains obtain it, they can coordinate a breakout and multiple attacks at once. Izuku's stomach twisted. And if we obtain it, Izuku whispered. All Might's voice was firm. We can cut off the head before the body moves. Izuku stared at the ceiling, trying to steady his breathing. His body felt too strong and too weak at the same time. Strong because he could climb walls and heal fast. Weak Becca. Use the hunger could turn him into something he feared. He looked at All Might again. You're asking me, Izuku said, because I'm different. All Might didn't deny it. He simply said, yes. Izuku's eyes burned. He wanted to say no. He wanted to say, I'm 16, I'm scared, I don't know what I am, I can't even eat normal food. But then his brain betrayed him with a memory. Bakugo choking. His own body moving without permission. The instinct to save. The truth was, Izuku had never been able to walk away. Even when walking away would have been smarter. I don't want to be used, Izuku said, voice shaking. All Might nodded slowly. Then don't be. Izuku blinked. What? All Might leaned forward, eyes intense. If you do this, young Midoriya, you do it as a choice. As Izuku swallowed hard. And if I say no? He asked. All Might's gaze softened. Then we find another way. Even if it is harder. Izuku's chest tightened, because that honesty made the decision heavier. He wasn't being forced, which meant if he accepted, it would be on him. Izuku's stomach shifted again, the hunger whispering faintly, like it sensed tension. All Might noticed the change in Izuku's expression. We will not send you starving. All Might said immediately. Recovery Girl is working on a portable suppressant. Nezu is designing contingencies. And you will not go in unprepared. Izuku swallowed. He looked down at the drip. Portable suppressant. That meant vials. That meant carrying something that kept his humanity intact. But also meant He truly needed it. Izuku's voice dropped. If I lose control. All Might's hands clenched. Then we will plan for that too. Izuku stared at him. You're not scared of me? Izuku asked, the question slipping out before he could stop it. All Might's eyes widened slightly. Then he looked away, as if the truth was difficult. I am scared, All Might admitted quietly. Izuku's heart cracked. All Might continued, turning back, voice steady. Not of you. Of what this world is doing to children who want to save it. Izuku's eyes stung. All Might stood slowly. I will leave you with this, he said. Nezu will speak to you next. Think about what you want. Izuku swallowed hard. All Might paused at the door. Then, without turning, he said softly. Whatever you choose, you are still Midoriya Izuku. And then he left. The door sealed behind him with that same gentle hiss, like a cage pretending it was a room. 2. Nezu's proposal. Nezu arrived an hour later. Izuku knew before the door opened because he could smell that mint tea again, crisp and sharp. The principal entered with a clipboard almost as big as he was, and hopped up onto the chair beside the bed like it was perfectly normal for the UA principal to be having a private conversation with a quarantined teenager who might be a biohazard. Recovery Girl followed behind him, arms crossed. You're awake and not screaming, she said. Good. Don't ruin it. Izuku managed a small nod. Nezu tilted his head. Midoriya Izuku, I have a question. Izuku's stomach tightened. Okay. Nezu's red eyes gleamed. What do you know about yourself right now? Izuku blinked. What do you mean? Nezu's tail flicked once. Do you believe you are a monster? Izuku's throat tightened. Recovery Girl muttered, ah. He's going philosophical. Izuku looked away, voice small. I don't want to be. Nezu nodded as if that answer mattered more than anything else. Interesting, Nezu said. Then you already possess the most critical component of heroism. Izuku frowned. A quirk. Nezu smiled. Restraint. Recovery Girl snorted. Nezu hopped down from the chair and paced a small circle, like a professor warming up for a lecture. We have confirmed, Nezu said, that your cellular structure contains an abnormal consent ration of what I will call RC-like cells for lack of a better term. Izuku flinched at the clinical language. Nezu continued anyway. They behave like a predatory organ. They respond to stress with rapid mutation. They provide regeneration, sensory enhancement, and a secondary appendage system. Izuku swallowed. And, Recovery Girl added, they mess with your appetite. Big time. Nezu turned back to Izuku. Your hunger is not psychological. It is biochemical. Your body is demanding a specific nutrient profile. Normal food does not satisfy it. Izuku's voice cracked. So I really need blood. Recovery Girl raised a hand. Listen, Drama King. Need blood sounds like a horror movie. What you need is a particular set of proteins and nutrients your body currently prefers. Blood is just the easiest match we can replicate. Nezu nodded. So we are replicating it. Recovery Girl stepped forward and held up a small case. She opened it. Inside were several slim vials, clear glass, pale red fluid, each capped with a secure seal. Izuku's eyes locked on them. His stomach reacted immediately. Not in a food way. In a relief way. Recovery Girl saw his expression and frowned. Yeah, I know. That's why you're not carrying these unsupervised yet. Izuku swallowed hard. So you made them. Temporary batch, Recovery Girl said. Not perfect, but it works well enough to keep you from spiraling. Nezu's voice remained calm. We call it suppressant for simplicity. It suppresses the hunger. It also stabilizes your regeneration. Izuku's hands clenched. And without it, Recovery Girl's expression was blunt. You become a tired kid with a starving body and instincts you don't trust. Izuku looked away, shame burning in his throat. Nezu's voice softened. Now, All Might spoke to you about Tartarus. Izuku nodded slowly. Nezu leaned forward slightly, as if letting Izuku feel that this was a choice being offered, not a command. The logic is simple, Nezu said. Tartarus detects quirk factors. Your biology is not one. Izuku swallowed. You are, Nezu continued, a ghost in a machine designed to detect living weapons. You are a living weapon the machine does not recognize. Izuku flinched. Don't call me that. Nezu paused. Then he nodded. Very well. You are a person the machine does not recognize. Recovery Girl muttered, better. Nezu continued. The objective is to retrieve a physical drive from the vault. You would enter. You would retrieve it. You would leave. Izuku's heart thudded. And if I'm caught? Izuku asked. Nezu's smile turned sharp. Not cruel, just honest. Henyu will discover why Tartarus exists. Izuku's skin prickled. Recovery girl pointed at him. Which is why you don't go in unprepared. Which is why you don't go in starving. Which is why you do exactly what we teach you. Even if you think you know better. Izuku swallowed. Nezu's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Before you answer, I want to show you something. He tapped the clipboard and turned it so Izuku could see. There were graphs, cell growth curves, heartbeat variability, regeneration measurements, and on one page, an image. An infrared scan of Izuku's back. 4 faint shadows curled beneath the skin, like sleeping snakes. Izuku's stomach twisted. Nezu's voice was gentle, almost curious. Your appendage system responds to emotional stress. When you fear, they rise. When you feel threatened, they prepare to strike. Izuku whispered, so my body is dangerous. Nezu nodded. Yes. Izuku's throat tightened. Nezu continued, but your mind is not. Recovery girl's face softened for a moment. Nezu pointed to another graph. This line, he said, is your impulse response in a stress scenario. Izuku stared, confused. Nezu tapped a point on the graph. This spike is when you look toward Bakugo. Izuku flinched. Nezu's voice didn't judge. It simply stated facts. You experienced hunger. Instinct. Izuku swallowed, shame thick. Nezu tapped the line again. And this drop, immediately after, that is you pulling away. You rejecting the impulse. Izuku blinked. Nezu looked at him, red eyes steady. Your body is not you. Your decisions are you. Izuku's breath shook. Recovery girl grunted. He's got a point. Izuku stared at the vials again. He imagined being in Tartarus, surrounded by villains and guards and cold steel walls. He imagined the hunger rising. He imagined losing control. Then he imagined the opposite. He imagined retrieving the drive. Preventing a breakout. Saving people he'd never meet. He looked up. If I do this, Izuku said slowly, I don't want to be hidden away forever. Nezu nodded once. Reasonable. Izuku's voice steadied, shakily. I want to be trained. I want to learn. Kant raised an eyebrow. Good. Because you're not leaving this facility until you stop flinching at your own heartbeat. Izuku swallowed. Nezu's ears twitched. And there is one more condition. Izuku tensed. What? Nezu smiled slightly. You must choose your boundary line. Izuku frowned. My boundary line. Nezu's voice turned serious. Under no circumstance can we allow you to harm civilians. Under no circumstance can we allow you to consume human flesh. Izuku's stomach turned hard. I don't want to. Nezu nodded. Then we plan around it. Recovery girl added, blunt, but if you're trapped, starving, and your body's screaming, you need a rule you can cling to like a rope. Izuku's hands clenched. He understood what they were asking. They weren't just asking if he'd do the mission. They were asking what kind of person he'd be when he was pushed beyond comfort. Izuku swallowed, throat tight. My boundary, he whispered, is, I don't kill. Nezu watched him closely. Recovery girl's eyes narrowed like she was testing if he meant it. Izuku forced himself to breathe. I won't kill, he said again. Louder. Even if I'm starving. Recovery girl snorted. Bold. Nezu nodded. Then that will be your rope. Izuku's chest tightened. And if I fail, Nezu's voice was quiet, then we will deal with it. But we will not plan for failure. We will plan for success. Izuku stared at them. Then he made his decision. I'll do it, Izuku said, voice shaking but clear. Recovery girl groaned like someone had assigned her extra paperwork for the next 10 years. Nezu smiled. All Might will be relieved, Nezu said softly. And terrified. But relieved. Izuku swallowed hard. Nezu turned toward the door. Then let us begin. 3. The making of a ghost. Training didn't start with punches. It started with breathing. Aizawa Shota arrived that evening. Izuku smelled him before he entered. Coffee, tiredness. And that strange calm that some people carried like armor. Aizawa walked in, looked at Izuku, looked at the reinforced room, and sighed. So you're the kid, he said, voice flat. Izuku swallowed. Yes, sir. Aizawa's eyes flicked to the drip line. I don't like this. Recovery girl crossed her arms. Nobody likes it. But he likes starving even less. Aizawa's gaze returned to Izuku. Sharp and assessing. Can you bring them out? Aizawa asked. Izuku hesitated. The appendages, Aizawa said. The tentacle things. Izuku's face burned. They're not, I mean. Aizawa held up a hand. I'm not here to insult you. I'm here to understand what your body does. Izuku swallowed. He closed his eyes. He tried to remember the alley. The suffocation. The fear. His spine prickled immediately, as if his body liked remembering. But he didn't want to summon them with fear. So he tried a different emotion. Determination. The feeling of grabbing the sludge villain even when he knew he couldn't win. His back tightened. A pressure formed beneath the skin. Then, snap. 4 red-black appendages burst out behind him, unfurling like living whips. Recovery Girl stepped back instinctively. Aizawa didn't flinch. Izuku's heart hammered. The appendages hovered, twitching, waiting. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. You control them? Aizawa asked. Izuku swallowed. I think so. Aizawa stepped closer. Izuku's appendages tensed. Aizawa stopped. Tell them to relax, Aizawa said. Izuku tried. The appendages didn't relax. They curled tighter. Izuku's throat tightened. They don't listen when I'm nervous. Aizawa nodded like that confirmed something. Then step 1 is not combat, Aizawa said. Step 1 is emotional control. Izuku blinked. Like meditation. Aizawa's mouth twitched like he hated the word. Like survival. He turned to Recovery Girl. If his instincts spike with stress, then any mission will trigger them. Recovery Girl nodded. Which is why he's learning control now, while he's safe. Izuku stared at his own Kagun, fear and awe twisting together. Aizawa looked at him again. You want to be a hero? Aizawa asked. Izuku swallowed. Yes. Aizawa's voice was flat, but not cruel. Then learn to breathe like one. Heroes don't panic. They act. Izuku nodded, throat tight. Aizawa stepped back and pointed. Retract them. Izuku tried. Nothing. His Kagun remained out, twitching. Aizawa stared. Izuku's face burned with shame. I can't. Aizawa sighed. Okay. Then, casually, Aizawa activated his quirk. His eyes glowed faintly. Izuku's Kagun didn't vanish. Aizawa's face changed, subtle surprise. Recovery Girl muttered, told you. Aizawa's gaze sharpened, suddenly more serious. So it's not a quirk, Aizawa murmured. Izuku's heart pounded. Aizawa looked at him. Then this is a body problem, Aizawa said. Not a power switch. Izuku whispered, what do I do? Aizawa's answer was immediate. You train it like you train a muscle, he said. Repeatedly. Until your body learns the pattern. Izuku swallowed. Aizawa pointed again. Try retracting 1, he said. Not all 4. Just 1. Izuku focused on the leftmost appendage. He imagined it pulling back like a rope. It twitched, then slowly withdrew, sliding back under his skin with a sickening softness that made Izuku's stomach flip. Recovery Girl grimaced. Izuku's breathing shook. Aizawa nodded. Good. Again. Izuku did it again. And again. And again. Hours passed. By midnight, Izuku could retract all 4, but only with intense focus. He was sweating. His spine ached. His mind felt raw. But the moment he finally pulled the last appendage back under his skin, he felt something new. Not hunger. Not fear. A small, fragile sense of control. Aizawa watched him quietly. You're not a monster, Aizawa said. Voice low. Izuku blinked, surprised. Aizawa's gaze remained sharp. Monsters don't work this hard to keep others safe. Izuku swallowed hard. Then Aizawa turned away, like he regretted saying something almost kind. Get some rest, Aizawa said. Tomorrow you learn stealth. 4 Hatsume's, totally normal, solution. The next day, Izuku met Mei Hatsume. It was not a calm experience. They wheeled him into the support department workshop because Nezu insisted, equipment must match biology. The moment the reinforced door opened, Izuku's senses exploded. Oil, metal, sparks, heat, rubber, and underneath it all, the wild, chaotic heartbeat of someone who was having the time of her life. A girl in goggles popped up from behind a table like she'd been launched from a cannon. Oh my gosh, she shouted. You're the biohazard kid. Izuku flinched. Recovery Girl pinched the bridge of her nose. Please don't call him that. Hatsume leaned in so close Izuku could see his reflection in her goggles. "Your eye is awesome," she said. "Can you do it again? Like, does it switch? Or is it always on? Do your tentacles come in different shapes? Can I attach utility hooks? Wait, can they hold a grappling line?" Izuku's brain short-circuited. Nezu stood on a stool nearby, looking far too pleased. "Hatsume, we are here for the stealth suit." "Oh, right." Hatsume clapped her hands. "Stealth suit. For the secret prison mission. Totally normal. Love it." Izuku choked. "Secret, what?" Recovery girl smacked Hatsume's shoulder. "Stop saying it like that." Hatsume pouted. "But it is cool." Izuku looked at Nezu, panicked. "She knows." Nezu smiled politely. "She is brilliant. We require brilliance." Izuku whispered, "This is insane." Hatsume spun around, dragging out a mannequin covered in sleek black fabric, segmented armor plates, and a mask. The mask wasn't a skull. It wasn't monstrous. But it was intimidating: sharp lines, a narrow mouth grill, and a design that without being a copy. Hero aesthetics, but shadow-themed. Izuku stared. Hatsume beamed. "Ta-da! The Spectre suit, prototype." Recovery girl groaned. "You named it already." "Names are motivational," Hatsume said. "Also, it sounds cool." Izuku swallowed. "What does it do?" Hatsume launched into explanation like a machine gun. "Okay, so, it's got thermal dampening mesh to reduce your heat signature, not invisible, but less obvious. It has sound-absorbent plating around the joints so you don't go clank-clank like a walking toolbox. It has saltwater-resistant seals because Nezu said, ocean approach, and I said, yes. It has an inner lining that won't snag when you're back, does the tentacle thing. And it has." She held up the mask proudly. "A breathing filter so your super smell doesn't knock you out when you walk past a cafeteria or a blood bank or whatever." Izuku's stomach twisted. "That's actually helpful." "I know," Hatsume said, delighted. "And the mask has a voice modulator so you don't sound like a trembling cinnamon roll if someone talks to you." Izuku's face went red. "I don't sound like." Recovery girl nodded. "You do." Izuku deflated. Hatsume also pulled out a belt sai. Stem with slots for the suppressant vials. "And these," she said, "are sealed vials with a quick inject mechanism. You press, it injects. No fumbling, no dropping, no dramatic spillage." Izuku stared at the vials. His hunger whispered faintly like it approved. Recovery girl's tone turned serious. "Those are your lifeline. You lose them, you abort. You understand." Izuku swallowed. "Yes." Nezu hopped closer, peering at Izuku. "How do you feel about the mask?" Izuku touched the edge of it carefully. It was cool. Smooth. Not heavy. It didn't feel like a villain's disguise. It felt like armor. A boundary between his face and the world. "It's good," Izuku admitted. Hatsume grinned. "Because you're gonna be scary. Like, criminals wet themselves scary. But you're still a hero, so it's like, ethical scary." Recovery girl muttered. "I hate that sentence." Izuku swallowed and looked at the suit again. A shadow hero suit. A mission into Tartarus. All Might's network codes. It was all moving too fast. He hadn't even processed the fact he wasn't quirkless anymore. He wasn't sure if he was even human anymore. And now he was being handed a mask and told he'd be invisible to the systems designed to stop monsters. Izuku's throat tightened. Nezu watched him carefully. "This is overwhelming," Nezu said softly. Izuku laughed weakly. "A bit." Nezu nodded. "Then we proceed step by step." Recovery girl jabbed a finger at Izuku. "First step, control. Second step, stamina. Third step, don't be an idiot." Hatsume raised both hands. "Fourth step, look cool while you do it." Recovery girl glared. Hatsume smiled brighter. Izuku couldn't help it. A small, shaky laugh slipped out. It wasn't joy. It wasn't comfort. But it was something human. And he needed that right now. 5. The question that haunts him. That night, Izuku lay back in his containment room again. The suit had been fitted and adjusted. The vials had been tested and labeled. Aizawa had drilled him on movement patterns, blind spot timing, and how to freeze without looking guilty. Nezu had shown him schematics of Tartarus, outer walls, ocean perimeter, ventilation routes. All Might had not returned yet. But Izuku could still feel him in the edges of everything, like the entire plan had All Might's desperation stitched into it. Izuku stared at the ceiling again, hearing his own heartbeat steady and loud. He lifted a hand and touched his left eye. The skin around it felt normal. But he knew what was under it. The black sclera. The red iris. The proof that something in him had changed permanently. He swallowed. Then he read the question he hadn't been brave enough to ask out loud. Am I still allowed to call myself a hero? No one answered. The room didn't respond. The containment walls didn't care. But inside his chest, beneath fear, beneath hunger, something stubborn tightened. His old dream. Not the shiny version. Not the pose and smile version. The real version. Saving people, even if nobody clapped. Saving people, even if they were scared of you. Izuku closed his eyes, and in the darkness behind his eyelids, he saw the mission ahead like a tunnel. Cold, deep, unforgiving. He could almost taste the ocean air. Almost hear the distant metallic heartbeat of a prison full of monsters. Izuku's stomach shifted. The hunger whispered again. Eat. He swallowed hard. Then he whispered back, voice shaking but determined. Not them. And for now, that was enough. Phase 1. The metamorphosis and the mission. The ocean at night didn't look like water. It looked like a living sheet of ink, endless, cold, and patient. Izuku sat inside the stealth jet with his hands folded so tightly together his knuckles ached. The cabin lights were dim, red and minimal, and the only sound was the steady, controlled roar of the engines, quiet enough to be stealth. Loud enough to remind him that if anything went wrong, there was no easy way back. Across from him, Aizawa sat with his scarf wrapped loose, eyes half-lidded like he was bored. Izuku knew better. Aizawa wasn't bored. Aizawa was watching everything. The specter suit hugged Izuku's frame like a second skin. It was comfortable in the way that expensive gear was comfortable, soft lining, careful seams. No pinching, no snagging. The mask sat beside him, resting in his lap. He hadn't put it on yet. He didn't know why he was delaying. Maybe because once it was on, this stopped being training. This became real. Nezu's voice crackled through the earpiece embedded in the suit's collar. Approaching target perimeter. 3 minutes. Izuku swallowed. His throat was dry again. The suppressant belt sat snug around his waist. 4 vials. Each one a lifeline. He touched them lightly, as if checking they were still real. Aizawa's voice, low and flat, filled the cabin. Put the mask on. Izuku flinched slightly. Yes, sir. He lifted it and slid it over his face. The seal set with a soft click, and the breathing filter engaged immediately, cool air flowing in like the suit was exhaling for him. The world changed. Not just visually. Psychologically. The mask didn't erase Izuku's fear, but it gave the fear a place to sit where it wouldn't spill out and ruin everything. Nezu's voice returned, calm and precise. Remember, you are not fighting Tartarus. You are passing through it. Izuku nodded even though Nezu couldn't see him. Aizawa leaned back slightly, looking at him from under tired lashes. You get in, you get the drive, you get out, Aizawa said. No heroics. Izuku's stomach clenched at that phrase. No heroics. It sounded like betrayal. But he understood what Aizawa actually meant. No improvising. No emotional decisions. No grabbing someone out of instinct and ruining the mission. Izuku forced himself to breathe. Nezu continued, the prison's external detection net is calibrated for quirk factors. It will not recognize you as an intruder in the same way. Izuku's mouth went dry. However, Nezu added, and Izuku could almost hear the tiny smile in his voice. It will recognize you as a warm, moving object. Thermals, cameras, motion sensors, machines that didn't care whether you were a quirk user or not. Aizawa's eyes sharpened. The RMAL cameras don't care about your tragic backstory. Use the blind spots. Izuku nodded again, slower. He'd memorized the route. He'd recited it until it was carved into him. Ocean drop. Outer wall. Maintenance access. Vent traversal. Block route. Vault. Simple. Except nothing about Tartarus was ever simple. The jet dipped. Izuku felt the shift in pressure in his ears and the slight tilt of gravity, and his stomach floated with it. Nezu's voice, Yu's heartbeat ticked louder in his skull. And that's when his senses tried to sabotage him. Even through the mask filter, the ocean smell hit him, salt and cold and deepness. But there was something else too, faint and far, like a whisper on the wind. Metal. electricity, and heartbeats. Not close, not in the jet, but far away, across the water. Tartarus wasn't just a building. It was a mass of living people sealed inside steel. Guards, staff, inmates. So many heartbeats that they blurred into one low, pulsing presence, like standing near a Geon T machine that was powered by human life. Izuku's chest tightened. His Kagun stirred under his skin. He forced it down. He forced his body to stay calm. Nezu's voice, 10 seconds. Aizawa stood. He didn't reach for Izuku. He didn't pat him on the shoulder. That wasn't his style. He simply said, "Don't die." Izuku almost laughed. He almost cried. Instead, he whispered, "I won't." The rear hatch opened. Cold air slammed into the cabin like a punch. The ocean wind screamed, and the darkness outside looked endless. Izuku stood. His legs felt steady, which was suspicious, like his body was too ready. He stepped to the edge. Below, the black water waited. Nezu's voice was calm in his ear. "Jump." Izuku's mind screamed, "Why am I doing this?" His heart screamed, "Because people will die if you don't." And his body, his altered, hungry, monstrous body, didn't hesitate. He jumped. The fall into cold. For the first second, there was nothing but air. Then gravity grabbed him like a fist. Wind tore at his suit. The ocean rushed up fast. Dark and sharp. Izuku's stomach dropped into his spine. He spread his arms slightly like they'd taught him. Controlled fall, no panic movement, conserve energy. In the corner of his vision, the suit's minimal HUD displayed altitude and rate. Not fancy. Just enough to keep him alive. The water swallowed him. Cold slammed into every seam. Even with the suit's ceiling, the shock was violent. The world turned to pressure and muffled sound and the taste of salt on his tongue. Izuku kicked, orienting himself. The jet was already gone, silent, fast, a disappearing shadow against the sky. He was alone. Above him, night. Around him, ocean. Ahead, a fortress that should not exist. Izuku turned, treading water. Tartarus rose from the sea like a nightmare that had been built by engineers instead of fear. The outer wall was massive, slick metal and reinforced concrete, rising straight up from the waterline, with no easy handholds and no mercy. Lights scanned slowly along the perimeter. Not spotlights, those were dramatic. These were precise beams, thin and methodical, moving in patterns. A prison doesn't need drama. A prison needs certainty. Izuku's breathing filter hummed softly. His limbs began to feel heavy. Not from cold, from the weight of what he was doing. Nezu's voice whispered in his ear. "Proceed." Izuku kicked forward. He swam. The closer he got, the stronger his senses became. He could hear the distant whine of surveillance drones. He could smell the faint ozone of security systems. He could feel the wall's presence, like the air itself became more guarded. And the hunger stirred, curious now. Not screaming, not desperate, just aware. There were so many living people behind that wall. So much heat, so much blood. Izuku clenched his teeth. He touched the first vial at his belt, not injecting, just reminding himself, "I have a rope. I have a boundary." He reached the wall. The surface was slick, cold, and nearly vertical. No ladders, no cracks, no human way up. Izuku didn't need a human way. He exhaled slowly. Then he let his Kagun out. 4 Rinkaku tendrils erupted from his back, slicing through the water with a quiet splash. They flexed, thick and muscular. Like living whips ready to strike. But Izuku didn't want them to strike. He wanted them to hold. He drove the first tendril into the wall. It pierced the outer layer with a soft crunch and stuck. The vibration traveled up his spine, feedback like biting into something solid. The second tendril followed. Then the third. Then the fourth. 4 anchors. Izuku pulled. His body lifted out of the water like a puppet hauled up by strings. Salt water streamed off his suit. The wind hit him immediately, colder now. He pressed his boots against the wall, feeling for any friction. There wasn't much, so he made his own. He stabbed the tendrils again, higher. Pulled, stabbed, pulled, like climbing a wall with 4 extra arms and an iron will. Above him, the scanning light swept closer. Izuku froze, flattening himself against the wall. The suit's thermal dampening worked. He could feel it, like a slight coolness spreading across his torso. But he wasn't invisible. He was just less obvious. The light passed. Izuku didn't move until it was gone. Then he continued. One pull at a time. Silent. Steady. No hero poses. No shouting. Just a boy climbing a prison wall in the dark. 2. The first line of defense. Halfway up, he felt it. A subtle vibration through the wall. A change in the structures, noise. Tartarus wasn't one wall. It was layers. Outer shell. Security plating. Sensor mesh. Izuku had been warned about this. Nezu's voice. You will pass through a section of sensor webbing. It detects pressure changes and electromagnetic disturbances. Move slowly. Do not strike hard. Izuku swallowed. He adjusted his tendrils, making their punctures shallower, more careful. The Rinkaku were strong enough to punch through steel, but strength wasn't the goal. Precision was. He lifted one tendril and felt the wall's resistance like a careful tap. Nothing screamed. No alarms. His heart thudded. He kept moving. Higher. Higher. Near the top, he reached the maint. Nant's lip, a narrow ridge where the outer wall met an overhang designed to prevent climbing. For humans, it was a dead end. For Izuku, it was just an angle change. He anchored 2 tendrils beneath the lip, then used the other 2 like hooks over the edge. He pulled. His body swung, pivoting around the corner. For a second, he hung upside down, dangling over the overhang with the ocean far below. His stomach dropped again. His senses screamed fall. His Kagun tightened. He pulled harder. He rolled over the lip and flattened on the narrow maintenance ledge above. He lay there, chest heaving, staring into the dark. He was on Tartarus. He was inside the perimeter. And nothing had noticed. Not the quirk net. Not the alarms. Not the prison itself. Izuku felt a chill that had nothing to do with the wind. Nezu had called him a ghost in the machine. Right now, it felt true. And that was terrifying. Because ghosts weren't supposed to be real. Izuku crawled along the ledge, staying low. Ahead, he saw the maintenance access point, a panel embedded in the wall, secured with multiple locks. Not a normal door. A service hatch. Nezu's voice. Panel is analog locked. No digital input. Use the tool. Hatsume had given him a compact device, a thin, mechanical bypass tool that didn't ping electronic security. Izuku pulled it out with careful fingers. His hands shook. He hated that they shook. He forced them steady. He inserted the tool into the lock seam. Turned. Felt resistance. Turned again. A soft click. Then another. The hatch loosened. Izuku held his breath. He eased it open. Darkness yawned. Behind it, an internal shaft with faint airflow. He slipped inside and pulled the hatch closed behind him. And just like that, the ocean wind vanished. The world became metal, darkness, and quiet. 3. The prison breathes. Inside the shaft, the air smelled different. Not like ocean. Like metal. Like disinfectant. Like recycled oxygen. The kind of smell that told you this place never truly opened its lungs to the outside world. Izuku crawled forward, slow and careful. The shaft was tight. The Spectre suit helped. It didn't snag. His Kagun remained retracted for now, but he could feel it under his skin, ready. He reached a grate. Below it, faint light. A maintenance chode distantly. Izuku froze. He listened. His hearing stretched outward, catching the rhythm of the approaching steps. 2 guards. Their gear clinked softly. Their conversation was low. Told you, man. The sensors keep glitching. That's not a glitch. That's the system adjusting. They upgraded last month. You hear about the rumors. Like, somebody's planning something. Shut up. You want the walls listening. Izuku's stomach tightened. The walls were listening. Not in a supernatural way. In a Tartarus was built by paranoid geniuses way. The footsteps passed beneath the grate. Izuku waited until the sound faded. Then he moved. He slid along the shaft toward the next junction. Nezu's schematic had shown him a maint. Enen's network that connected to ventilation lines. His entry route was designed to avoid main corridors entirely. But even maintenance spaces had cameras. He reached an intersection where the shaft widened slightly. A small camera dome sat in the corner, angled toward the access panel. Izuku froze again. Thermal in motion. He remembered Aizawa's words. Thermal cameras don't care about you. Nezu's voice. Camera rotation pattern is 7 seconds. Move only during sweep away. Use Kagun for silent swing. Do not expose face. Izuku's pulse spiked. 7 seconds. He stared at the camera. It rotated slowly, scanning. When it angled away, Izuku acted. His Kagun snapped out silently, 2 tendrils this time, anchoring ahead. He swung his body forward in one smooth motion, staying high in the shaft, avoiding the camera's direct angle. He landed against the far wall, breath held. The camera rotated back. For a fraction of a second, Izuku felt like it was staring straight through him. Then it continued past. No alarm. Izuku exhaled slowly. His hands were sweating inside his gloves. His mouth felt dry again. The hunger whispered faintly, like it enjoyed the tension. Izuku tightened his jaw. Not now. Not here. He kept moving. As he crawled deeper, the prison's presence grew heavier. It wasn't just the sound of guards. It was the sound of containment. Locks clicking, vent fans pushing, dist, and intercom announcements muffled by walls. And always, always, the heartbeat chorus, guards and staff above, inmates deeper below. Some heartbeats were steady, some were irregular, some were disturbingly calm. Izuku forced his mind to stay on the mission. Vault, drive, exit, fort, sensory overload. The first time Izuku truly felt overwhelmed was when he reached the primary ventilation artery. It was larger than the others, big enough to crouch walk through, and it carried air from multiple sections. When he opened the access hatch, a rush of air hit him. And with it came a flood of information. Smells layered like a storm. Disinfectant, sweat, metal, stale food, oil, and blood. Not fresh, not dramatic, but the faint, ever-present scent of living bodies in a sealed place. Izuku's stomach clenched violently. The hunger surged, not into full screaming, but enough to make his hands shake. His vision sharpened. His left eye prickled, threatening to shift into Kakugan fully. He swallowed hard, breathing through the filter. It helped, but it didn't erase it. Because the problem wasn't just smell. It was his brain trying to process every heartbeat, every breath, every micro sound. He could hear someone coughing 2 corridors away. He could hear a guard's radio crackle. He could hear the soft shuffling of feet in a cell block he couldn't see. Izuku squeezed his eyes shut behind the mask. Focus. Breathe. Aizawa had drilled this into him. When your senses drown you, you choose one anchor. Izuku chose Nezu's voice in his ear. Proceed, Nezu said calmly, as if Izuku wasn't fighting his own biology. You are nearing Block B perimeter. Maintain ventilation route. Izuku nodded slightly. He moved forward in the vent, crouched low. The vent rattled faintly under his weight, but the suit's sound dampening minimized it. He moved slowly, timing his steps with the hum of the vent fan. Noise hiding noise. That was what Aizawa called it. As he passed above a lit corridor, he glanced down through a grate. Guards walked below, armored and alert, not just normal police. Tartarus guards moved like people who expected their enemies to be stronger than them. Their eyes were sharp, their shoulders tense. They weren't heroes. They were jailers. And Izuku was sneaking through their ceiling. His heart hammered. For a second, a thought flashed. If they find me, they won't ask if I'm a kid. They'll see the mask. They'll see the tendrils. They'll see a threat. His Kagun stirred under his skin again. Izuku pressed his palm to his own chest through the suit, grounding himself. Not now, he continued. 5. The map in his head. Izuku discovered something strange as he moved deeper. His heightened senses weren't just overwhelming. They were useful. At first, the heartbeats were a blur. But as he focused, patterns emerged. Guard patrols had rhythms. Pairs walked in consistent routes. Drones hummed in predictable loops. He could feel the prison's routine. He began to build a map in his mind, not from sight, but from sound and smell and vibration. A guard post here, because he could hear the repeated click of someone tapping a screen. A camera there, because the faint electric whine of its servo movement repeated every few seconds. A door with a high security lock, because the electromagnetic hum was stronger behind that wall. Nezu's schematics were helpful, but Izuku's senses were becoming a second blueprint. And that made him both impressed and scared. Because if his senses could map the prison like this, then his instincts could also map the people. He could tell which heartbeats were stressed, which were bored, which were angry, and which were cold. Izuku didn't like how easy it was to separate prey from danger in his head. He tightened his jaw and forced himself to think in hero terms. Guards, civilians, inmates, not prey, not food, people. He repeated it silently, like a mantra. People, 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 The hunger whispered back, amused. Izuku ignored it. 6. The drop point. Nezu's voice, approaching drop point. Vent shaft will descend to maintenance level adjacent to Block B. This is the closest safe route toward the vault corridor. Izuku stopped at a vertical shaft, an internal drop vent. With rungs embedded into the side. He peered down. Darkness. Far below, faint light. The air was colder here. He could feel it rising up the shaft like breath. Izuku swallowed. He let his Kagun out, just a little, 2 tendrils curling around his waist like extra stabilizers. Then he began to descend. 1 rung at a time. His boots landed softly thanks to the suit's padding. He kept his body close to the wall, minimizing sound. Halfway down, he heard voices. 2 guards again, closer now. They weren't beneath him. They were at a nearby access door, talking. Hate this level. Feels like the walls sweat. Shut up. Just do your shift. You ever wonder what's in the vault? You don't want to wonder. That's how you get curious. And curious people end up transferred. Izuku continued down, slow. His senses screamed at him to freeze. To hide. To listen. He forced himself to keep moving because standing still made his mind drift toward hunger. He reached the bottom of the shaft and eased into a narrow maintenance tunnel. This tunnel wasn't a vent. It was a service crawlspace. Pipes ran along the walls, some warm, some cold. A faint red emergency strip light ran along the floor. Izuku moved forward, staying low. The tunnel ended at a maintenance hatch. Beyond it, the first true section of the prison interior he would have to cross. Nezu's voice, this is the last concealed route. From this point, you enter active service corridors. Maintain stealth. Avoid contact. Izuku's throat tightened. His palms were sweaty. His heart thudded. He touched his belt again, vials present. He had a mask. He had a plan. He had still Izuku Midoriya, a kid who yesterday had been taking notes in a classroom. Now he was about to step into Tartarus like a shadow. He placed his hand on the hatch latch. He paused. Because the moment his fingers touched the metal, he felt something. A vibration, very faint. Like something heavy moving far away. Not footsteps. Not a guard. Bigger. Deeper. A slow, dragging resonance through the walls. Izuku froze. His senses sharpened. He listened harder. The vibration repeated. A low thud, then silence, then another. Like a heartbeat that didn't belong to a human. Izuku's stomach turned. Nezu's voice in his ear became slightly sharper. Midoriya. Status. Izuku swallowed. There's something, he whispered. Moving. Deep. A pause. Nezu's voice. Calm but focused. We are not detecting any unusual patrol movement. Could be structural, or inmate activity. Izuku's Kagun twitched under his skin. The hunger whispered. Danger. Izuku forced it down. He couldn't afford to be spooked by shadows. But he couldn't ignore his senses either. He took 1 slow breath. Then he unlatched the hatch. It opened silently. Cool, recycled air flowed in. Izuku slipped through. And the maintenance tunnel sealed behind him like a door closing on the last safe place he'd ever known. 7. First steps in the labyrinth. The service corridor was narrow and dim, lit by overhead panels designed to prevent shadows from being used as hiding spots. Joke's on them. Izuku was the shadow. He moved low along the wall, matching his steps to the faint hum of the lights. A camera dome sat at the far end. A door with a keycard lock sat beside it. This was a staff corridor, maintenance only. But even maintenance corridors had security. Izuku waited. The camera rotated. 7 seconds. He moved on to sweep away. His Kagun flicked out for a split second, anchoring him to the ceiling edge to keep his body from crossing the camera's main line. He swung past the door and landed silently behind a support column. His breathing was controlled. His heart pounded anyway. From here, he could hear more. A distant intercom. Shift change in 15 minutes. Gua. Road radio crackle. Check the lower junction. And below, deeper than all of that, the slow heavy vibration again. Thud. Silence. Thud. Izuku swallowed. His senses told him it wasn't a machine. It wasn't a guard. It was something alive. Something big. Nezu's voice. Proceed to the junction, then take the left service path. That will lead toward Block B bypass. Izuku nodded. He moved. The corridor opened into a junction. 3 paths. 2 cameras. 1 emergency door. No obvious cover. Izuku's body wanted to run. His mind forced him to wait. He watched the camera patterns. Left camera, sweep every 6 seconds. Right camera, sweep every 8. Their blind spot overlapped for exactly 1 second. 1 second wasn't much, but he didn't need much. He timed it. He moved. A burst of speed, silent, controlled, sliding low through the overlap. He reached the left path and pressed himself against the wall, breathing hard. No alarms. Izuku exhaled slowly. He was inside. He was moving. He was doing it. And then the hunger surged again, sharp and sudden. Izuku's stomach clenched. Not because of the prison smells. Because someone was nearby. Very close. A heartbeat, fast, nervous, just around the corner. A lone guard. Izuku froze, pressing himself tighter to the wall. His mind ran through options. Retreat. Too risky. Hide. Not enough cover. Neutralize. That was the plan if absolutely necessary, but Aizawa had been clear. No heroics. No unnecessary contact. The guard's footsteps approached. Izuku heard the key ring jingle. He heard the guard mutter under his breath. Stupid night shift. Izuku's Kagun stirred. His instinct screamed at him to strike first. To remove the threat. To feed. Izuku's throat tightened. No. 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 He reached for a vial. Not yet injected, he didn't want to waste it. But he needed the hunger quiet. His fingers hovered over the injector. The guard stepped closer. Izuku's left eye prickled. The Kakugan threatened to flare fully. He felt his heartbeat spike. The Kagun pressed against his skin like it wanted out. Izuku forced himself to breathe through the mask. Slow. Controlled. He had trained for this. He had practiced restraint. He had promised. He listened to the guard's movement and realized something. The guard was walking past the corner, not turning into it. If Izuku stayed perfectly still, the guard wouldn't see him. But the guard might smell him. Or the guard might look down the corridor out of boredom. Izuku's skin prickled. The guard's heartbeat was loud now, right there, separated by a thin slice of wall. Izuku's mind flashed a terrifying image of grabbing the guard, silencing them, tasting the warmth of. Izuku bit down hard on his own tongue. Pain shot through his mouth. The metallic taste of his own blood filled the mask. The hunger recoiled slightly, confused by being fed the wrong target. Izuku didn't care. He used the pain like an anchor. The guard passed the corner. Footsteps receded. The key ring jingled away. Izuku stayed still until the sound faded completely. Then he sagged slightly against the wall, trembling. He pressed a gloved hand to his mouth inside the mask. His tongue hurt. His chest hurt. But he hadn't moved. He hadn't attacked. He hadn't become what he feared. Nezu's voice came softly through the earpiece. Good discipline, Midoriya. Izuku swallowed hard, throat tight. He whispered back, barely audible. It was close. Nezu's voice remained calm. It will get closer. Remember your rope. My boundary, Izuku thought. I don't kill. I don't eat people. He forced his breathing steady again. Then he moved forward, deeper into the labyrinth, toward Block B, toward the vault, toward the place where the prison's heartbeats grew colder, and the heavy, inhuman thudding below grew louder. And as Izuku vanished down the corridor like a shadow, the last thing he heard, far beneath the walls, was that slow, massive pulse again. Thud, 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 like something waiting. Phase 2, the labyrinth. Izuku had Alwa.'s thought stealth was about hiding your body. Tartarus taught him the truth. Stealth was about hiding your existence. Not just from cameras, from patterns, from routines, from the rhythm of a place T. Had been designed to notice anything that didn't belong. He moved deeper into the service corridors, keeping his shoulders low and his breathing steady through the mask filter. The specter suit muted his steps. But his own heartbeat still sounded loud in his skull, like Tartarus could hear it through the walls if it tried hard enough. And the hunger wasn't screaming anymore. It was worse. It was thinking. Like a quiet voice at the back of his mind that didn't shout orders, it offered suggestions. If you remove the guard, you can move freely. If you take what you need, you'll stabilize. If you do it fast, no one will know. Izuku clenched his jaw so hard his teeth hurt. Not now. Not ever. He repeated his rope in his head, like he was gripping it with both hands. I don't kill. I don't eat people. Humanity is actions. Nezu's voice in his ear remained calm, quiet enough to not leak into external microphones. Approaching Block B outer boundary. Corridor density increases. Expect more thermal coverage. Izuku's fingers brushed his suppressant belt again, 4 vials still there. He hadn't used one yet. He'd almost injected after the last close call, but he'd stopped himself. Because what if the real emergency came later? What if he ran out? Aizawa's voice slid into the calm line, low, blunt, and perfectly Aizawa. Don't hoard it like it's rare candy. If your head slips, the mission ends. Izuku swallowed. I'm okay, he whispered. Aizawa didn't answer with comfort. He answered with reality. Okay isn't the standard. Functional is. Izuku exhaled slowly. Functional. The corridor with no shadows. The next junction opened into a passage that made Izuku's stomach sink. Bright overhead panels. Smooth walls. No columns. No crates. No cover. It was a corridor designed by someone who hated blind spots. 2 camera domes rotated on opposite ends. A thin strip of ceiling vents ran down the center like a spine. And the worst part, a thermal unit mounted in the middle, aimed downward like an eye that didn't blink. Nezu's voice, this corridor is a thermal sweep zone. You cannot cross at floor level without being flagged as a moving heat mass. Izuku stared at it, breathing through the mask. The suit dampened his heat signature, but it didn't erase him. He wasn't a ghost to this system. He was still a warm body. Aizawa's voice, ceiling. Izuku looked up. The vent strip wasn't wide enough for a human to crawl through. But it was wide enough to grip. Izuku let 2 Rinkaku tendrils slide out silently from his back. They didn't whip dramatically, they moved like muscles waking up. He anchored the first tendril into the seam near the vent strip. Then the second. The feedback buzzed through his spine, solid. Izuku lifted his body off the floor and pressed himself flat against the ceiling, using the tendrils like hooks. His boots hovered inches from the light panels. His heart hammered. He moved, not crawling, gliding. He shifted anchor points smoothly, like a spider crossing a ceiling. Below, the thermal unit scanned. Izuku could feel it tracking the corridor, its motor humming faintly. His suit cooled his skin. His mask filter kept his breathing quiet. But still, his instinct screamed that he was exposed. Halfway across, the camera at the far end rotated, slow, steady, its lens turning toward him. Nezu's voice, stop. Izuku froze mid-glide, leaning to the ceiling like a shadow pinned to light. The camera lens passed over the ceiling seam. Izuku's breath stopped. For a terrifying moment, he imagined an alarm, sirens, guards swarming. But the camera kept rotating. It didn't lock on. It didn't notice. Izuku didn't move until Nezu whispered. Continue. He moved again, faster now, anchor shifting in tight, controlled motions. He reached the far end and dropped behind a doorframe alcove where the corridor bent sharply. He landed without a sound. Izuku pressed his back against the wall and forced himself to breathe. 1 corridor down, Tartarus remained quiet, but his body was learning something dangerous. It felt good, not morally, physically. His Kagun loved the movement, the precision, the hunt-like flow of crossing a dangerous space unseen. The hunger didn't scream, it purred. Izuku swallowed hard. No, this isn't hunting, this is saving. He pushed forward, to the drone that almost ruined everything. The next section wasn't as bright, but it was worse in a different way. A small security drone floated near the ceiling, moving in slow circles. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It had sensors, thermal, motion, maybe even sound analysis. Nezu's voice, drone pattern repeats every 12 seconds. It pauses at the north corner for 3. Izuku watched it from behind a service panel gap. The drone drifted, paused, drifted again. He timed it. The moment it paused, he slid out and moved low along the wall, heading toward the next maintenance hatch. 3 seconds wasn't a lot. He was almost there, when the drone made a noise. Not a beep, a subtle shift in its hum. It changed direction. Izuku's blood went cold. Nezu's voice sharpened. It deviated. Aizawa, freeze. Izuku froze immediately, flattening himself against the wall. The drone drifted closer. His senses flared. He could hear the tiny motor adjustments. The faint clicking of something focusing. His Kagun pressed under his skin, wanting to burst out and swat it out of the air. Izuku didn't. If he destroyed it, that would be noticed. If he ran, that would be noticed. He needed a third option. Hatsume's voice echoed in his mind, bright and chaotic. I added a few babies. Just in case. Izuku's fingers slid to a small pouch on his belt. A heat decoy patch. A disposable strip that could warm rapidly, meant to create a brief false target for thermals. He hadn't wanted to use it. But he didn't have time. The drone hovered closer. Izuku peeled the patch, slapped it onto a pipe behind him, and tossed a small scrap of insulation down the corridor. Tiny sound. Tiny motion. The drone twitched. Its sensors locked onto the warm patch and the movement. It drifted away, circling the pipe. Izuku didn't move until it committed. Then, like a shadow slipping through a crack, he rolled into the maintenance hatch area and pulled himself inside. The hatch sealed with a soft click. Izuku held his breath. Outside, the drone's hum faded. He exhaled slowly, shaking. Nezu's voice returned to calm. Good use of equipment. Aizawa's voice stayed blunt. Don't get cocky. Izuku whispered, not planning to. He crawled through the narrow maintenance space. Until the tunnel opened into another service corridor. Block B was close now. He could feel it. The air grew colder. The heartbeat chorus shifted. More tension. More irregular rhythms. More danger. And beneath everything, faint. Like a distant storm, he heard that heavy, inhuman thudding again. Thud. Silence. Thud. Izuku's stomach tightened. Whatever that was, he didn't want to meet it. 3. The patrol. The corridor ahead had a maintenance door marked with a simple warning. Authorized personnel only. Behind that door was the route that would take him around Block B's main hallway without exposing him to the central cameras. Nezu's voice, that door leads to the bypass. Lock is keycard plus physical bolt. Izuku reached for the mechanical bypass tool. He started working the bolt quietly. 1 click. 2. Footsteps. Close. Izuku froze. His senses snapped outward. 2 guards approaching from the left branch. Not a casual walk. Their steps were heavier, more alert. And one heartbeat among them was faster. An anxious guard. That was unpredictable. Nezu whispered, patrol approaching. You have 10 seconds before line of sight. Izuku's mind raced. He couldn't open the door in time. He couldn't run without being seen. There was a service alcove behind him, a shallow recess with pipes. Not enough to hide his whole body. But maybe enough to hide his shape. He moved fast, silent, slipping in. The recess and pressing himself behind the pipe cluster. He retracted his kagun fully and forced his breathing shallow. The footsteps drew closer. The guards' voices were low. Swear I heard something. It's the vents, man. No, not vents. Like a scrape. Izuku's heart hammered so hard he thought it would echo. The hungry part of his mind offered another suggestion. If they're removed, you can continue. If they're removed, you are safe. Izuku's hands clenched into fists. No. The guards turned into the corridor. They were close enough now that Izuku could smell them. Coffee breath. Metal. Sweat. Gun oil. His stomach twisted with hunger, sudden and sharp. He pressed his tongue against his teeth to stop himself from reacting. One guard shone a small light down the corridor. The beam swept. It passed within inches of Izuku's hiding place. Izuku didn't move. He didn't blink. The guard's flashlight beam slid away. The first guard exhaled. See. Nothing. The second guard wasn't convinced. His heartbeat was still fast. He stepped closer to the pipe alcove. Izuku's skin prickled. The guard lifted his light toward the pipes. Izuku's instinct screamed. Strike first. His kagun twitch. Ed under his skin like it wanted to explode outward and impale. Izuku forced it down with sheer will. The guard leaned closer. Izuku saw his fingers tighten on the flashlight. One more step and the GHT would catch the edge of Izuku's boot. Izuku made a decision. Not a violent one. A controlled one. He moved. Fast. Silent. He slipped out from behind him the guard like a shadow, and hooked his arm around the guard's neck in a chokehold. Not crushing. Not panicked. Aizawa had drilled this. Compression, not damage. Timing, not rage. Izuku's other hand covered the guard's mouth to prevent a shout. The guard's eyes widened. He struggled. Izuku tightened the hold just enough to cut air and blood flow briefly, controlled, careful. The guard's movements slowed. His heartbeat spiked, then began to dip. Izuku's own body trembled with adrenaline. His hunger screamed at the closeness. Warmth. Life. Blood beneath skin. Izuku gritted his teeth and held. 3 seconds. 4. The guard's hands went slack. Izuku eased him down gently to the floor so the fall wouldn't thud. The other guard had turned at the motion, eyes wide, reaching for his radio. Izuku was already moving. He lunged forward, grabbed the second guard's wrist, redirected the hand away from the radio, and shoved the guard into the wall hard enough to knock air out, but not hard enough to break bone. The guard wheezed, stunned. Izuku applied the same chokehold, faster this time. The second guard struggled longer, because he was stronger. Izuku's Kagun pressed inside him like a beast pushing against a cage. He ignored it. He held the choke. The guard's eyes rolled. His body sagged. Izuku lowered him too, careful, controlled. Silence. 2 guards unconscious. No blood. No deaths. No screams. Izuku backed away, breathing hard behind the mask. His hands shook violently. Not from fear. From the hunger that surged at the proximity and the fight. His stomach twisted like it was angry at him for not feeding. Izuku reached for a suppressant vial. His fingers hovered. Aizawa's voice murmured in his ear, almost approving, functional. Nezu added quietly, good restraint. Now hide them, quickly. Izuku swallowed and forced his body into motion. He dragged the guards into the pipe alcove and used zip restraints from his belt to secure their wrists and ankles. He gagged their mouths lightly, not cruelly, just enough to prevent them waking and shouting immediately. Then he positioned them behind the pipes, out of sight from the corridor. It wasn't perfect, but it bought time. Izuku stepped back, chest heaving. His stomach lurched. The hunger pressed hard now. Furious at being denied, Izuku didn't inject yet. Instead, he used another anchor. Pain. He pressed his fingernails into his palm through his glove until it hurt. Not enough to injure. Enough to ground. I don't kill. I don't eat people. I don't become a monster. His breathing steadied. Then he turned back to the door. The door that wanted a keycard. Izuku worked the lock faster now. Urgency sharpening his focus. The physical bolt clicked. The keycard reader remained. Nezu's voice. Keycard required. One of the guards. Izuku's stomach dropped. He didn't want to touch them again. Not because of disgust. Because of temptation. But he forced himself. He knelt by the closest guard, kept his gaze away from the neck, and searched the utility belt until his fingers found the keycard. He yanked it free, stood, and swiped it at the reader. A green light flashed. The door clicked open. Izuku slipped inside immediately and pulled it shut behind him. The space beyond was narrower, another service passage, dim and colder, lined with pipes that carried coolant and air. He leaned against the wall and let himself breathe. He had neutralized 2 guards. He hadn't killed. He hadn't fed. He'd done it. His hands still shook. His hunger still clawed. Izuku finally pressed the suppressant injector against his thigh, through the suit's designated injection seam, and clicked. A sharp sting. Warmth spread through his system like a blanket. The hunger didn't vanish, but it dulled, receding from screaming predator to angry whisper. Izuku exhaled shakily. Good call. Recovery girl's voice came faintly through the comm line. She wasn't supposed to be on mission comms, but Nezu had allowed quick medical updates. You were spiking. Izuku swallowed. I'm okay. Recovery girl snorted. You're surviving. Keep it that way. Nezu whispered. Proceed. Block B access is ahead. Izuku moved forward. 5 Block B, where heroes don't walk. The service passage ended at a grated overlook. Izuku peered through, and his blood ran cold. Below was Block B, not the outer prison halls with bright lights and patrolling guards. This was deeper. The air felt heavier, like it had been breathed too many times. Cells lined the corridor like teeth. Each door was reinforced, layered, and designed to hold monsters in human skin. Izuku's senses exploded. Heartbeats, so many, comp. Rest and distorted by stress and hatred. Some were slow and steady, unnervingly calm. Some were erratic, like trapped animals. Some were barely there, weak and faint. And the smell, even through the mask filter. The smell of humans packed into a sealed place hit Izuku like a wave. Sweat. Old blood traces. Disinfectant fighting a losing battle. Izuku's stomach tightened. His Kakugan prickled under the skin around his left eye. He forced it down. Nezu's voice was careful now. Do not engage inmates. Do not respond to provocation. Maintain route. Izuku nodded. He wasn't planning to talk. He wasn't planning to look at anyone for too long. He just needed to cross the upper maintenance route and reach the vault corridor junction. He moved along the upper service ledge, keeping low. Below, an inmate laughed suddenly, sharp, barking. Another inmate muttered to themselves. Someone slammed their fist against their cell door. The sound echoed up through Izuku's bones. His instincts flinched. Tartarus wasn't just built to hold villains. It was built to make you feel small. Izuku continued. Then he heard a voice that cut through the noise. Calm, clear, almost amused. You're not a guard. Izuku froze. His spine tightened. His senses locked onto the source of the voice. It came from a cell near the middle of the corridor, someone sitting in darkness, not shouting, not ranting. Just observing. Izuku stayed still, breathing shallow. The voice spoke again, slightly louder, like it knew Izuku could hear. That mask, that smell. Izuku's stomach twisted. The voice chuckled softly. You smell like blood and regret. Izuku's hands clenched. Nezu's whisper in his ear, do not respond. Izuku didn't. But his body, his cursed instincts, still wanted to turn his head. Wanted to look. Wanted to identify the threat. Because that voice didn't sound like a madman. It sounded like someone sharp enough to be dangerous even in chains. Izuku forced himself to keep moving. 1 step. 2. The voice followed. Calm as a knife sliding from a sheath. If you're here for the vault, you're already too late. Izuku's breath hitched. Nezu's voice sharpened. Ignore. Izuku tried, but his mind caught on one word. Vault. That voice knew. Which meant either that inmate was brilliant, or the situation was worse than Nezu thought. Izuku reached the end of the upper service route and slipped into the next maintenance hatch. Putting metal between himself and the cell block. Only then did he exhale. His hands shook. His heart pounded. His hunger whispered faintly, uneasy. Because it recognized something too. That voice wasn't prey. It was a predator, trapped in a cage, watching shadows pass overhead. Nezu spoke quietly. That was Stain. Izuku froze. Stain. The hero killer. Izuku's throat went dry. Nezu continued. He is awake. And he noticed you. Izuku swallowed hard. He had known Chapter 5 was coming. He just didn't expect it to start with a voice that sounded like it could see through him. Izuku tightened his grip on his rope, his promise, because the labyrinth wasn't just walls and cameras anymore. Now it had eyes. And one of them belonged to a man who hated fake heroes more than anyone alive. Phase 2, the labyrinth. The maintenance hatch sealed behind Izuku with a soft click. Quiet EULD, hear it. But the words followed him anyway. If you're here for the vault, you're already too late. The corridor beyond was narrower, colder, and darker than the last. The overhead lights were spaced farther apart, like Tartarus didn't believe this section deserved brightness. Pipes ran along the ceiling like ribs. And the air tasted faintly metallic through the mask filter. Izuku pressed his back to the wall and forced himself to breathe. Slow, controlled, functional. The suppressant had dulled the hunger. But it hadn't erased the instincts. They were still there, pacing inside him like a caged animal that remembered what freedom felt like. Nezu's voice was quiet in his ear. Your route runs parallel to Stain's holding corridor for approximately 90 meters. You are not to engage. Aizawa's voice followed, flatter and colder. Not a conversation, not a glance. You keep moving. Izuku swallowed hard. Yes, but he couldn't stop thinking about the voice. It wasn't just that Stain had noticed him. It was how. As if Izuku's mask and stealth and careful movement were meaningless next to something as simple as scent. As simple as blood. Izuku's fingers brushed the remaining vials on his belt. 3 now. 3 chances to keep the hunger quiet. He pushed off the wall and moved forward. 1. The corridor that felt like judgment. The passage shifted into a new kind of quiet. Not the engineered silence of a containment room. Not the hum and click rhythm of maintenance halls. This quiet felt intentional. A corridor meant to hold people who didn't deserve comfort. Izuku stepped down a short stairwell. The air turned colder, the kind of cold that didn't come from weather, it came from concrete that never saw sunlight. Then the smell hit him. Even through the filter, even dulled, it seeped through the mask like a memory. Old disinfectant, metal, and the faint, stale trace of something human, sweat, skin. Fear, sealed behind reinforced doors. Izuku's stomach tightened. The hunger stirred. Not screaming, but curious. Nezu whispered, "You're near his cell." Izuku's steps slowed despite himself. He didn't want to. But his senses pulled him, involuntarily, toward the source of that voice. A mental reflex. Identify danger. Measure threat. No predator. Izuku hated that his brain thought like that now. He reached a junction where the maintenance corridor ran alongside a prison cell hallway separated by thick reinforced walls and narrow observation slits. He couldn't see into the cells directly. But he could hear. Not clearly. Just enough. A cough. A faint shuffle. A chain adjustment somewhere. And then, a calm, sharp voice from behind the wall. "Keep walking." Izuku froze. His spine tightened so suddenly his kagun pressed against the inside of his back like it wanted out. The voice spoke again, amused. "Unless you want to be seen." Izuku's breath hitched. Nezu whispered, "Do not respond. Aizawa, move." Quote. Izuku forced his feet to obey. 1 step. 2 steps. The voice didn't get louder. It didn't need to. It spoke like it knew exactly where Izuku was. "You don't move like a guard. Too light." Izuku's heart thudded. The voice continued, almost conversational. "You don't move like a hero either." Izuku's fingers twitched. He kept walking. The voice chuckled softly. "But you move like someone who's been told, don't make mistakes." Izuku's throat tightened. He could imagine Stain behind that wall, bound and restrained, eyes open in the dark like a hunting dog. That didn't need sight to know prey was near. Izuku's instinct screamed for him to leave this corridor immediately. But the route demanded he pass through it. So he walked. The voice followed. "You smell wrong." Izuku's stomach turned. The hunger surged in response to being noticed. The voice's tone sharpened slightly, still calm, but now edged like a blade. "Not villain wrong." Izuku's steps faltered. "Not hero wrong." Izuku kept moving. "You smell like blood and restraint." Izuku stopped. He couldn't help it. Those words, blood and restraint, hit too close to his ribs. His breathing became louder in the mask. The voice behind the wall softened again, almost pleased. "There it is," Stain murmured. "That little hesitation. That's honesty." Aizawa's voice snapped in his ear. "Midoriya, move." Izuku swallowed. He moved again. But he didn't move away from the voice fast enough. Because Stain had found the exact crack in him. Restraint. Not because Izuku was calm. Restraint because Izuku was constantly holding a monster back with shaking hands. And Stain had heard the tension the way other people heard a scream. 2. The whispered collision. Izuku reached the end of the parallel corridor. A maintenance door that would take him deeper toward the vault junction. He placed his hand on the latch. Behind the wall, Stain spoke again. "Stop pretending you're invisible." Izuku's fingers stiffened. Nezu whispered, "Ignore." But then Stain's voice changed. Not louder. Not demanding. Just sharper. "You're here for the vault." Izuku's blood went cold. His hand stayed on the latch, but he didn't open it. Because that wasn't a guess anymore. That was certainty. Stain continued. "Which means someone outside still thinks they can win without becoming dirty." Izuku's throat tightened. Stain's chains clinked softly, just one sound. Like a man shifting in a chair. "You're not a guard," Stain said. "And you're not here to free me." A pause. "So you're here for information. For codes. For control." Izuku's mind raced. How did he know? Was it a trap? Was there surveillance? Was someone listening? Nezu's voice, low and controlled. "This corridor is internally monitored, but sound pickup is minimal. Still, do not reveal mission." Izuku's chest tightened. Stain chuckled softly. "You have a handler in your ear," he said casually, as if he could smell the radio frequency. "I can hear the way you pause after you breathe. Like you're waiting for permission." Izuku's hand tightened on the latch. Stain's tone became almost mocking. "That's not how a true hero moves." Izuku's jaw clenched. He wanted to stay silent. He wanted to leave. But something in him, something stubborn and human, was tired of being defined by fear and hunger in containment rooms. Tired of being treated like a hazard. Stain had called him not hero. Not villain. Stain was talking like he owned the definition. Izuku hated that. And worse. A part of him wanted to prove Stain wrong. That was dangerous. But Izuku didn't answer like a teenager. He answered like someone clinging to a boundary. He whispered, voice low enough to be swallowed by the corridor hum. I'm not here for you. The calm line went silent. Nezu didn't scold. Aizawa didn't snap. They were listening. Stain laughed, pleased. So you can speak. Izuku kept his hand on the latch. He didn't turn toward the wall. He stared at the door ahead like it was the only real thing. Stain's voice sharpened. Tell me something, then. Monster. Izuku's stomach clenched at the word. Stain continued anyway. You were born like that. Or did you earn it? Izuku's fingers dug into the latch. He whispered back, quieter than before. I didn't choose it. Stain hummed as if tasting the answer. But you're choosing something else right now. Izuku's breath hitched. Stain's tone became almost curious. You're standing near my cell. Izuku stayed still. You're armed. Stain's chains clinked again. And you're starving. Izuku's throat tightened. And yet, Stain said softly. You haven't tried to kill me. Izuku's skin prickled. Stain's voice dropped like a knife sliding into a table. Why? Izuku swallowed hard. Because the truth was ugly and simple. Because Stain was helpless. Because killing him would be easy. Because the hungry part of Izuku's mind Izuku was terrified of how much he could. He forced the words out anyway. Because, that's not heroism. Stain laughed again, but this time it wasn't pleased. It was sharp. Heroism, he repeated, like the word tasted rotten. You think wearing a mask and sneaking through a prison makes you a hero. Izuku's jaw clenched. I'm here to stop people from dying, Izuku whispered. Stain went quiet for a moment. The corridor seemed to hold its breath. Then Stain spoke again, and his voice was colder now. Then you're already lying to yourself. Izuku's chest tightened. Stain's tone became a quiet, brutal lecture. People will die because of that vault whether you succeed or fail. Izuku's fingers shook. Stain continued, relentless. Villains will kill. Heroes will pretend. Society will clap for the right faces. Izuku's heart hammered. And then Stain said something that made Izuku's stomach drop. You're not the first one to come through here hunting for control. Izuku froze. Nezu's voice sharpened in his ear. What does he mean? Aizawa, don't ask. Izuku didn't ask. But Stain's voice carried on. As if he knew he'd landed the hook. Some come in uniforms, Stain said. Some come in shadows. Izuku's breath shook. And all of them, Stain murmured, think they're the good guy. Izuku whispered, barely audible. I'm not doing this for credit. Stain laughed softly. No, Stain agreed. You're doing it because you need to believe you're still human. Izuku's stomach twisted. That hit like a direct strike to the ribs. Because it was true. Not the way Stain meant it. Izuku wasn't doing this to feed his ego. But he did need to believe he was still human. Every second of this mission was a test against the fear of becoming something else. Izuku swallowed hard. He whispered, voice shaking but steady. Humanity isn't what you are. Stain fell silent. Izuku continued, because if he stopped now, Stain's words would crawl into him and live there. Humanity is what you do. Another pause. Then Stain's voice changed, less mocking now. More focused. You believe that? Stain asked. Izuku didn't hesitate this time. Yes. Stain's chains clinked again, faint. Then why hide? Stain asked quietly. Why crawl like a thief? Izuku's eyes burned behind the mask. Because this isn't about being seen, Izuku whispered. It's about stopping something before it happens. Stain's voice went low. So you're choosing results over image. Izuku didn't answer, but the silence was answer enough. Stain exhaled slowly, like a man considering a blade's balance. For someone who smells like a predator, Stain said, you're trying very hard to stay pure. Izuku's throat tightened. Stain's tone sharpened again, but not with mockery, more like warning. That purity will get you killed. Izuku's blood ran cold. Stain's voice lowered to a near whisper. The vault isn't empty. Izuku's hand tightened on the latch. Stain continued. They don't leave that kind of thing unguarded. Izuku's stomach twisted. Nezu's voice, we know. Stain chuckled softly. No, Stain said. You don't. Izuku's breath hitched. Stain's voice became quiet and razor sharp. There are eyes in this prison that don't belong to the guards. Izuku froze. Aizawa's voice went hard. Move. Now. Nezu whispered urgently, Midoriya, end this. Izuku's instinct screamed at him to ask more. To get details. To confirm. But the mission was already risky enough without standing still in a monitored corridor having a Philosophical debate with the hero killer. Izuku whispered one last line, not to Stain, almost to himself. I'm not here to be pure. He opened the maintenance door. Then, with his voice still low, he added, I'm here to save people. And he stepped through. The door sealed behind him, cutting off Stain's presence like closing a book. For a second, Izuku thought it was over. Then Stain's voice slipped through the seam anyway. Faint but clear, like a curse carried on breath. Then don't become what you hate. Izuku's heart slammed against his ribs. He kept walking. The aftertaste of words. He next corridor felt brighter, not physically, but mentally, because Stain's voice wasn't in it. Still, Izuku couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just walked through a knife edge. Not because Stain could physically reach him. Because Stain could reach the parts of him that were already bleeding. Nezu's voice came quietly. That was risky. Izuku swallowed, shame prickling. I know. Aizawa didn't yell. He didn't scold. He simply said, if you get addicted to proving yourself, you'll die. Izuku's grip tightened around the bypass tool in his hand. I wasn't trying to. Aizawa cut him off, flat. Doesn't matter what you were trying to do. You talked. That's exposure. Izuku swallowed hard. Nezu's voice softened slightly. However, Stain may have provided useful data. Izuku's chest tightened. He said the vault isn't empty. Izuku whispered. And, eyes that don't belong to guards. Nezu's tone turned analytical. We already anticipated a guard presence. The second point is, concerning. Aizawa's voice, concerning means, assume trap. Izuku's stomach turned. A trap. That lined up with the heavy thudding he'd felt deep beneath the walls. It lined up with the uneasy sense his instant CTS had been screaming since he entered the prison. Izuku moved through another junction, staying low, timing his steps with camera sweeps. His body was still in stealth mode. But his mind kept replaying Stain's words. You smell like blood and restraint. Izuku hated how accurate that was. He touched the second vial slot, still full. He'd used one suppressant. He had 3 left. He needed to make them count. He needed to keep his head. He needed to stay human. The narrow escape without glory. The route toward the vault corridor forced Izuku into a short stretch of open service hall again, less bright than the first one. But with more staff traffic. He paused behind a corner, listening. 2 guards. A drone. A staff cart rolling. The squeak of wheels. He timed it. He moved on the overlap. He slipped behind the cart as it rolled past, using it as temporary cover. He moved with it, then peeled off into an access niche. No alarms. No attention. A clean pass. This was the kind of movement that didn't look heroic. It looked like a thief. But Izuku understood the difference now. A thief moved for themselves. He was moving for people who would never know his name. The thought steadied him. He reached another maintenance hatch. Nezu whispered, beyond this point is the vault approach corridor. You will be within 60 meters of the secure chamber. Prepare. Izuku's stomach clenched. Feel the prison's heartbeat chorus changing again. More staff. More equipment hum. More security. And underneath, that heavy, slow thudding grew slightly louder. Thud. Silence. Thud. Izuku swallowed. His instincts whispered one word. Nomu. He didn't know why. He didn't have proof. But his body reacted like it recognized the pattern of something unnatural. He pressed his palm against the hatch. Took one breath. Then opened it. A monster recognizes another monster. The air beyond the hatch was colder and cleaner, like this section was maintained more aggressively. Lights were brighter. The walls were smoother. Cameras were tighter. This wasn't just prison. This was asset protection. Izuku moved low along the ceiling line, using his Kagun in small, controlled anchors to keep his boots off the floor when cameras swept low angles. His body was silent, but his mind was loud. Because Stain's words sat inside him like a splinter. Don't become what you hate. Izuku didn't know if Stain meant it as a warning, an insult, or a test. Maybe all 3 time to untangle it. He had a vault ahead. A drive inside. And something waiting. The heavy thud came again, closer now. Thud. Thud. Not a machine. Not a guard. Something breathing. Something big. Nezu's voice was calm but tight. We are not detecting unusual guard movement, but your biological senses may be ahead of our instruments. Stay cautious. Izuku whispered, I hear it. Quote. Aizawa's voice, then assume it's real. Izuku nodded, even though no one could see him. He moved forward. The corridor bent, and at the far end, through a narrow gap between a doorframe and a wall. He saw it. A reinforced vault door. Thick, layered, with multiple locking mechanisms. And beside it, a silhouette behind a glass partition. Not a guard. Too tall. Too still. Too wrong. Izuku's blood went cold. His Kagun pressed against his back like it wanted to explode outward. His hunger, dulled, stirred sharply. Not because it wanted to feed. Because it recognized danger. A predator recognizing another predator. Izuku pressed himself into the shadow of the wall and held still, breathing shallow. Nezu's voice lowered. Visual confirmation. Izuku whispered, barely audible. There's something, waiting by the vault. Aizawa's voice went hard. Then it's a trap. Izuku stared at the silhouette again. It shifted slightly, and the heavy thud matched the movement like a heartbeat. Izuku swallowed hard. Stain had been right. The vault wasn't empty. And the eyes in this prison weren't only human. Phase 2, the labyrinth. Izuku didn't move. He couldn't. Not because his legs refused. His body was still strong, still ready, but because every instinct he had was screaming the same message in a language older than heroism. That thing by the vault is not human. That thing is waiting. That thing will eat you if you make one mistake. The silhouette behind the glass partition was too still, like a statue that breathed. Thud. Silence. Thud. The sound wasn't loud. Tartarus didn't allow loud things to exist unchecked. But the vibration traveled through the floor and up Izuku's bones like a warning bell. Nezu's voice, quiet and focused, came through the earpiece. Midoriya. Confirm. Is it moving like a guard? Izuku swallowed. His throat felt dry even behind the mask filter. No, he whispered. It's just standing. Aizawa's voice slid in, colder. Then it's not there to patrol. It's there to intercept. Izuku's fingers tightened against the wall seam. His Kagun pressed under his skin, restless, eager, defensive. He had to get that drive. But he couldn't walk into a trap blind. Nezu's voice, we need more data. Can you identify any external sensors on it? Any visible cables? A muzzle? Restraints? Izuku leaned forward a fraction and peered through the gap again. The silhouette's outline was bulky, too bulky. Its shoulders were thick, neck heavy, head slightly lowered as if listening. No visible weapon, no flashlight, no radio, just presence. Izuku's enhanced hearing picked up something else now. Breathing, slow, deep, not panicked, not rushed. The breathing of something that didn't fear anything in this building. Izuku's stomach clenched. His hunger stirred, not craving. Recognition. Predator. He whispered, I can't see details. It's behind glass. Nezu exhaled softly. Then we proceed with the assumption, hostile biological unit. Aizawa. Nomu. Izuku's blood cooled. Nomu weren't criminals. Nomu were weapons. Weapons didn't negotiate. Weapons didn't get tired. Weapons didn't care if the thing in front of them was a kid. Yu's hand drifted to his suppressant belt on instinct, not to inject yet, but to remind himself he had resources. 3 vials. 1 used. 3 left. He could do this. He could stay functional. He could. A faint whirring sound interrupted his thoughts. Izuku froze. A security drone floated down the corridor from behind, slow and quiet, like it had always been there and Izuku was just now noticing it. Its sensor lens rotated. Its hum changed pitch, like a dog catching scent. Nezu's voice sharpened instantly. Drone approaching from rear corridor. You have 6 seconds before it sweeps your position. Izuku's heart slammed. He couldn't stay pinned here. If the drone caught him, it would alert the vault unit. If it alerted the vault unit, the trap would snap shut early. Aizawa's voice, move. Izuku moved. The mistake that cost him. He didn't run. Running made noise. Running made patterns. Instead, he slipped backward along the wall, low and fast, using his Kagun in short, controlled anchors to keep his steps silent. The drone drifted closer. Izuku felt its sensor pass across the corridor like a cold gaze. He needed a blind spot. There, an emergency service alcove to the right, half hidden by a maintenance column. Izuku lunged into it, pressed himself tight behind the column, and flattened his body like a shadow caught between light beams. The drone hovered at the junction. Its lens rotated. Its hum sharpened, then softened, like it was evaluating. Izuku didn't breathe. He could hear his own pulse in his ears. Thud thud thud. The drone tilted slightly. And then, behind Izuku, something snagged. A small tug at his waist. A soft rip. Izuku's stomach dropped. The utility belt caught on a metal latch protruding from the alcove wall. He hadn't seen it. He'd moved too fast. The belt strap tore halfway. One of the vial clips popped loose with a tiny, awful click. Izuku's body screamed to grab it. But the drone was still hovering. One wrong movement and he'd be seen. The clip fell. It didn't hit the floor. It bounced once against metal, tink, and rolled into the corridor. The sound was tiny. But Tartarus was built to hear tiny. The drone's hum spiked. Its sensor lens snapped toward the sound. Izuku's blood went cold. Nezu. It heard that. Aizawa. Don't move. Izuku stayed still, eyes wide behind the mask. The drone drifted forward, following the rolling clip like it was curious. It hovered above the fallen vial holder, scanning. Izuku prayed, stupidly, irrationally, that the drone would dismiss it as debris. The drone's lens rotated, analyzing. Then it emitted a soft tone, barely audible, like a silent alert. Not a siren. Not yet. A quiet ping to the system. Nezu's voice tightened. It flagged an anomaly. Izuku's stomach twisted. The drone began to drift back toward the vault corridor. Back toward the waiting silhouette. Aizawa's voice went hard. Kill the drone. Izuku froze. He hadn't expected that. Killing a drone was different than hurting a person, but it was still escalation. It was still risk. Nezu's voice cut in quickly. Minimal force. Disable, don't destroy. If it doesn't report back, its route will be investigated but not immediately. Izuku's mind clicked. A window. A small window. If he disabled the drone quietly and moved fast, he could still reach the vault before the system realized something was wrong. Izuku's Kagun slid out. One tendril. Thin and controlled, no whipping, no dramatic strike. He waited until the drone drifted close enough that its underside faced him. Then he moved. The tendril snapped forward and pierced a C.M. beneath the drone, right where Hatsume's briefing had said the power core sat. There was no explosion, just a soft bzzzt. The drone's hum died. It sagged in the air for half a second, then dropped. Uku caught it with his Kagun before it hit the floor, absorbing the weight silently. He eased it down behind the column. No noise. No obvious damage. Just, off. Izuku exhaled shakily. Nezu whispered, good. Aizawa. Now fix your belt. Izuku looked down. The strap was torn. One vial clip was missing, gone into the corridor, flagged. The remaining vials were still there, but the belt was compromised. He reached to secure it. And the latch snagged again. The torn strap gave way. The belt loosened. For one horrifying second, gravity won. 2VO lunged, trying to catch them. One vial hit his glove and bounced. The second vial slipped past his fingers, fell out of the alcove, and clattered against the corridor floor with a sharper sound than the clip had made. Izuku's heart stopped. The vial rolled, spinning end over end. It didn't break. Hatsume's reinforced glass held, but it made noise. The kind of noise that didn't belong. Nezu's voice went tight. Multiple anomalies detected. Systems will escalate. Izuku grabbed the remaining belt strap and yanked it back onto his waist, securing it with a quick knot like Aizawa had taught him. Ugly, tight, functional. He checked. One vial still clipped. His other two, one had rolled into the corridor and could be retrieved if he risked exposure. The other was lost somewhere behind the column with the disabled drone, but not secured properly. He swallowed hard. Recovery girl's voice cut in, sharp and annoyed. What did you break? Izuku whispered, belt strap. I lost vials. There was a beat of silence that was somehow louder than yelling. Recovery girl, how many left? Izuku looked down at the single vial and felt cold dread spread through him. 1. Recovery girl swore under her breath. An old, brutal word that didn't sound like something a nurse should say. Aizawa's voice, abort. Izuku's head snapped up. Nezu's voice followed, calmer but urgent. Midoriya, you have one suppressant left. You are close to the vault and close to the trap. If you starve inside the secure corridor. Izuku swallowed hard. Abort. That was the smart call. That was the safe call. That was the responsible call. And Izuku's entire body rebelled at the idea. Because abort meant leaving the drive behind. Abort meant villains still having the codes. Abort meant a breakout. Abort meant people dying because he didn't finish the job. Izuku's hands trembled. He whispered, voice shaking. How long before the system escalates from anomaly to response? Nezu paused, calculating. Approximately 4 to 6 minutes before a patrol is redirected to investigate the drone's silent status and the detected object. Aizawa, which means you're on a timer now. Izuku's chest tightened. A timer. A trap ahead. One suppressant vial. His hunger stirred as if it heard timer and liked it. Recovery Girl's voice was fierce now. If you go in starving, you will lose control. Not because you're weak, but because biology doesn't care about your morals. Izuku squeezed his eyes shut behind the mask. He remembered the alley. The moment his mind tried to label Bakugo as food. The nausea that followed. The shame. He whispered, I can still do it. Aizawa's voice was flat, almost tired. Hope isn't a plan. Nezu's voice softened, barely. Midoriya, you can still be a hero without dying in a prison. Izuku opened his eyes. His vision was too sharp. His hearing too loud. His heart too fast. But somewhere under all of that, the part of him that had run into danger quirkless, stupid and brave, tightened like a fist. I can't leave it, Izuku whispered. Nezu went silent. Aizawa didn't argue again. He just said, then you finish fast. And you don't improvise. Izuku exhaled slowly. He secured the single vial tighter. He didn't try to retrieve the others. Too risky. Too much time. He stepped out of the alcove. And the moment he did, the hunger noticed the loss. Not intellectually. Chemically. His body realized it had fewer safety nets. And it reacted with a quiet, sickening surge of craving. Izuku clenched his jaw and moved forward. When hunger starts talking like you. At first, it was subtle. His stomach tightened more often. His throat felt dry. His tongue tasted wrong, like normal saliva didn't belong in his mouth. Then his senses sharpened past useful into cruel. Every heartbeat around him became louder. Every breath became a smell. Every living person in the walls became a reminder that blood existed and his body wanted it. Izuku's Kakugan prickled under his skin. Not fully activated yet, but threatening. Like a storm behind clouds. Nezu's voice guided him quickly. Proceed down corridor. Left junction. Then maintenance hatch C4. That will place you behind the vault partition. Izuku moved, fast and silent. His Kagun helped him traverse blind spots. Hooking ceiling seams, swinging past camera sightlines. But each movement cost more than it had before. Not physically, he was still strong. Biologically, his body wanted fuel. It wanted more than the pale red suppressant. It wanted the real thing. Izuku swallowed hard and forced his mind into small steps. Left junction. Camera sweep. Blind spot. Move. He reached the junction and paused. 2 guards were ahead, talking near a door. Izuku flattened into a shadowed niche. He listened. We got a ping from the corridor drone. Yeah, what kind? Anomaly flag. Probably trash. Still gotta check. Izuku's stomach clenched. They were coming. He had minutes, not hours. Nezu whispered, alternate route. Crawl space above you. Izuku looked up. A narrow panel. Tight space. He could fit, barely. He opened it quietly and pulled himself up. The crawlspace scraped his suit and pressed against his shoulders. His belt knot bit into his waist. He crawled forward, breathing shallow. The hunger pressed in, making the crawlspace feel tighter than it was. As if the walls were squeezing him. Then it happened. The first hallucination. It wasn't visual. It was olfactory. Smell of one of the guards below rose through a vent crack. Warm, metallic, alive, and Izuku's brain translated it wrong. Not as guard, as food. Izuku's stomach lurched violently. His mouth filled with saliva. His hands trembled. He froze in the crawlspace, gripping the metal like it was a lifeline. No, he whispered, barely audible. Recovery Girl's voice came in, tight. That's the first stage. Sensory mislabeling. Your brain is trying to help you survive. Izuku whispered, it's not helping. Recovery Girl, then you inject the suppressant. Izuku's fingers brushed the last vial. He hesitated. If he used it now. And the vault trap required it later. Aizawa's voice cut through, blunt. If you hesitate and lose your head, you won't reach later. Izuku swallowed hard. He pressed the injector against his thigh seam. Clicked. A sting. Warmth spread. The hunger dulled again, pulling back like a tide that had been forced to retreat. Izuku exhaled shakily. Now he had zero. No more safety net. No rope left except willpower. He kept crawling. Below, the guards passed underneath, their voices fading. Izuku reached the end of the crawlspace and dropped into a maintenance closet. He landed silently. His heart hammered. His mouth felt dry again already, like his body was angry about being denied. Nezu's voice. Vault partition is 30 meters ahead. Izuku nodded. 30 meters. He could do 30 meters. 3. The cafeteria that wasn't food. He moved through another service corridor, and the air changed. Warmer. Staler. A faint scent of processed food. He turned a corner, and saw it. Not a full cafeteria. A staff break nook. A small counter with sealed packaged snacks, a coffee machine, a microwave, and a mini fridge. Normal. Mundane. Almost comforting. Izuku stared at the fridge like it was a miracle. Because his mind, his human mind, thought. Food. Maybe real food will help. The hunger whispered, amused. Izuku stepped inside the break nook, staying low. No cameras in this SM. All side room, probably considered safe because it was deep inside a secure zone. He approached the fridge. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside, sandwiches in plastic, rice bowls, bottled water. Izuku grabbed a sandwich. He tore the wrapper open. The smell hit him, and his stomach revolted. Not mild nausea, violent rejection. The scent of bread and meat and lettuce, normal, human food, smelled like paper. Like something that didn't belong in his MDED with disgust. Izuku tried anyway. He took a bite. His teeth sank in, and the moment the food hit his tongue, his throat closed. His stomach cramped. His gag reflex fired like a gun. Izuku choked, spit the bite out, and doubled over, retching into the sink. Nothing came up, because there was nothing real inside him to expel. Just hunger and acid and horror. Izuku gripped the sink edge, shaking. His breath rasped through the mask filter. He stared at the sandwich like it was betrayal. Recovery girl's voice, softer now, came through. I told you. Normal nutrition won't stick. Izuku whispered, broken, I thought, maybe. Recovery girl, you're not failing. Your body is different. Izuku's fingers tightened. Different. Biohazard. Ghost. Monster. He swallowed hard and forced himself upright. The break nook smelled like humans had eaten here recently. Coffee. Warm food. And faintly, blood, because humans always carried it. Izuku's stomach twisted again. The suppressant was already fading. He could feel it. His regeneration would slow next. His strength would remain, but his stamina would drop. And the worst part, his mind would start offering solutions again. Izuku backed away from the fridge and closed it carefully. He didn't take anything else. No point. But as he turned to leave, he caught his reflection in the microwave door. Mask on. Eyes dark behind it. A shadow in a room meant for normal staff life. For a second, he didn't look like a hero. He looked like an intruder. Izuku forced himself to move. Fort when healing stops feeling easy. He slipped back into the corridor, following Nezu's guidance toward the vault partition. The security presence increased. More cameras, more sensor hum, more reinforced doors. He moved along the ceiling seam again, anchoring with his Kagun. Halfway across a junction, his glove slipped slightly on a slick metal edge. A sharp corner bit into his forearm through the suit seam. Pain flashed. Izuku sucked in a breath. Blood, his own, beaded under the fabric. Normally, it would have healed almost instantly. He waited for the familiar warmth of regeneration. It didn't come. Not fast. The cut stayed. Not gushing, just there. A simple, ordinary injury refusing to vanish. Izuku's stomach tightened. His body felt heavier. Aizawa's voice, sharp, status. Izuku whispered, I cut my arm. It's not healing. There was a pause. Nezu, your RC-based regeneration is nutrient dependent. Starvation slows repair. Recovery girl, which is why I didn't want you going in with one vial. Izuku swallowed. He didn't argue. He didn't have energy for guilt. He had energy for movement. He pressed a cloth patch over the cut and kept going. But the injury remained like a reminder. He wasn't invincible. He was a starving kid in a prison. And the trap ahead wasn't going to care about his bravery. 5. The decision point. Nezu's voice, you are at the vault partition entry. There should be a maintain a NCE hatch on your right, marked with yellow striping. Izuku spotted it, a small hatch near the floor, likely for wiring access. He crouched, forced his breathing steady, and opened it with the bypass tool. Cold air rushed out. The hatch led into a narrow service duct that ran behind the glass partition where the vault guard, whatever it was, stood. Izuku slipped inside and closed it behind him. Darkness wrapped around him again. He crawled forward, slow. The duct vibrated faintly. Thud. Silence. Thud. The vault unit was closer now. Izuku could hear its breathing clearly. He could smell it too, something wrong. Like antiseptic and muscle and something that didn't belong in a living body. Nomu. Or something like it. Izuku's stomach twisted. Nezu's voice was tight. Once you exit the duct, you'll be within immediate engagement range if it detects you. The vault door is beyond the partition. You must access the drive quickly. Izuku swallowed hard. Aizawa's voice, last chance to abort. Izuku paused in the duct. His arms trembled with fatigue. His stomach clenched with hunger. His cut burned. His head felt light, like his body was running on fumes and stubbornness. And yet, the thought of leaving without the drive made his chest hurt more than anything else. He whispered, "If I abort, what happens?" Nezu answered honestly. "We lose the opportunity window. We will attempt other methods. But the probability of a coordinated breakout increases." Izuku swallowed. People would die. Not certainly, but likely. And Izuku had been given the one loophole in the system. The one chance. He closed his eyes behind the mask. He remembered Bakugo choking. He remembered All Might's tired eyes. He remembered Recovery Girl's blunt truth: biology doesn't care about morals. He whispered to himself, barely audible. "Then I'll make my actions count." He opened his eyes. "I'm going," Izuku said. Aizawa didn't approve. He didn't praise. He simply said, "Then finish." Nezu's voice softened, just a fraction. "We're with you." Izuku's hands tightened against the duct metal. He crawled forward, toward the exit grate, toward the vault, toward the waiting predator. And as he reached the final seam, where the duct opened behind the partition, the hunger returned, not screaming, but whispering in a voice that sounded dangerously like Izuku's own thoughts. "You're weak. You need fuel. If you take what you need, you'll live." Izuku swallowed hard. His throat tasted like metal and fear. He whispered back, voice shaking, "No." Then he pushed the grate open and slipped into the space behind the glass. Sixth, the calm before the snap. The partition room was narrow, more like a security observation lane than a hallway. One side was glass looking into the vault corridor. The other side was solid wall with maintenance access points. Izuku crouched low behind a panel, peering through the glass. The vault door was right there, massive, layered, and covered in locks. And beside it, on the other side of the glass, stood the unit. Now Izuku could see it clearer. Not a guard. Too tall, too thick, too assembled. Its posture was wrong, like it had been taught to stand but not to relax. Its head tilted slightly, as if listening to vibrations rather than sound. Its chest rose and fell with slow, heavy breaths. Thud. Silence. Thud. Izuku's stomach tightened. Nezu whispered, "Can you access the vault controls from your side?" Izuku scanned the partition room. There, an internal maintenance panel that likely connected to the vault system wiring. If he could open it, he might bypass the lock enough to retrieve the drive without touching the front door. His fingers pulled out the mechanical tool. His hands shook. Not from fear now. From starvation. From fatigue. From the body's quiet rage. He started working the panel, slow and careful. Click. Turn. Click. The panel loosened. Izuku eased it open, revealing wires and a compact analog interface. Nezu's voice sharpened with interest. "Good. There should be a manual release sequence." Izuku scanned the interface. His mind was foggier than it had been earlier. The hunger was stealing focus, making numbers blur slightly. He forced himself to concentrate. Aizawa's voice, "Midoriya, don't overthink. Follow the steps." Izuku nodded once. He began the sequence. And then, on the other side of the glass, the vault unit moved. Not a full turn, just a small head tilt. A slow, deliberate adjustment like it had heard something it didn't like. Izuku froze mid-motion. His heart slammed. Because the unit wasn't looking at the vault door anymore. It was looking toward the partition, toward Izuku, toward the thin slice of wall that separated them. Thud. Its breathing deepened. Izuku's hunger flared in panic. Nezu whispered urgently, it may have detected vibration from the panel. Finish quickly. Izuku's fingers resumed, faster now. Click. Turn. A soft internal beep, mechanical, not electronic. The vault interface on his side shifted. A Hideor lit faintly. Nezu's voice, that's it. The drive should be in the internal retrieval slot. Izuku reached, and the unit on the other side of the glass took one slow step forward. The sound wasn't loud, but the floor trembled. Thud. Izuku's blood ran cold. Aizawa's voice was low, dangerous. It knows. Izuku's fingers closed around the retrieval slot. And in that same moment, the vault unit's hand lifted. Not toward the vault, toward the glass, toward the partition, as if it had decided the vault could wait. As if it had decided the intruder was the real priority. Izuku's breath hitched. He had the drive in reach. But the trap was snapping shut. And he had no suppressant left. Phase 3, the breaking point. Izuku's fingers closed around the retrieval slot. For one heartbeat, the world narrowed into something simple. Get the drive. He pulled. A small, hard object slid free, no bigger than his palm, wrapped in a reinforced casing with a thin red seal strip across the top. It looked almost ordinary, like a piece of tech you could lose in a drawer. Except this one could decide whether cities burned. Izuku tucked it into the inner pocket of his suit. Hatsume had built a magnetic clasp there. Specifically for important stuff that must not fall out when you do anime physics. The drive clicked into place. Safe. Secure. His chest loosened by a fraction. Then the floor trembled. Thud. On the other side of the glass. The vault unit stepped closer again. Its hand rose higher, slow, heavy, deliberate. Not panicked. Not rushed. Like it knew there was nowhere else Izuku could go. Nezu's voice tightened in the earpiece. Drive secured. Izuku whispered, yes. Aizawa didn't celebrate. He snapped, move. Izuku pivoted toward the maintenance duct exit. And the glass rang. A dull, deep sound like a bell struck underwater. The vault unit's palm pressed against the partition. The glass didn't crack. It was reinforced, engineered to stop quirk-enhanced attacks. The unit leaned in slightly anyway. Its head tilted. Its breathing slowed. And Izuku felt something sick settle in his stomach. Because the unit wasn't testing the glass to see if it would break. It was listening. It was sensing vibration through the structure, through the floor, the walls, the air. Izuku's Kagun pressed under his skin like it wanted to explode outward, protective and furious. He forced it down. If he lashed out now, he'd lose stealth completely. But stealth had already died the moment the drone went silent and the anomalies stacked. He needed escape. Izuku slid back toward the duct entrance, keeping low. The unit's hand moved again. Not a strike. A slow drag of fingers across the glass, as if mapping where the intruder's body heat sat. Izuku's blood chilled. Aizawa's voice, don't stare at it. Don't hesitate. Izuku swallowed hard and crawled into the duct. The metal scraped against his suit. He pulled the grate back into place behind him. For a second, the darkness of the duct felt like shelter. Then a sound hit him that made his spine go cold. A low, mechanical clack from somewhere nearby. Not from the unit. From the building. Nezu's voice turned sharp. Lockdown. Izuku froze mid-crawl. What? He whispered. Nezu's tone became fast, analytic. A localized security lockdown. The vault corridor doors are sealing. They're trying to isolate the area. Aizawa's voice was flat, but Izuku heard the tension under it. That's not normal protocol for a drone anomaly. Nezu's voice tightened. Agreed. Recovery girl cut in, irritated and worried. Meaning someone triggered it on purpose. Izuku's stomach sank. Trap. Stain's words came back like a needle under the skin. There are eyes in this prison that don't belong to the guards. Izuku crawled faster, arms trembling with fatigue. The suppressant warmth had fully faded now. The hunger crept back in light cold water rising. He reached the duct junction where he'd entered. The exit grate was ahead, leading into the maintenance tunnel that would take him away from the vault wing. He pushed forward, and the duct shuddered. A heavy impact, close. The metal vibrated under his palms. Izuku froze. Then it hit again. Thud. The sound wasn't from the corridor below. It was from the partition room behind him. From the vault unit. Izuku's breath hitched. It wasn't trying to break the glass anymore. It had decided to take the shorter route. It was hitting the wall near the duct. Nezu's voice sharpened. Midoriya, it's altering trajectory. It may be responding to vibration patterns. Aizawa, it's tracking you. Izuku's heart slammed against his ribs. He scrambled forward. The exit grate was right there. He shoved it open, dropped into the maintenance tunnel, and slammed it shut behind him. The tunnel was dim, narrow, and cold. And it was shaking. Not from the building, from the thing behind him. Izuku sprinted, silent sprint, controlled, boots landing soft thanks to the suit. But his body felt heavier now. His lungs burned quicker. His healing had already slowed. Starving meant every movement cost more. He reached a corner, turned, and ran straight into the second part of the trap. A line of armed guards. Not standard Tartarus patrol. Their uniforms were slightly different, more tactical, more reinforced, with small insignias covered or removed. They stood in a tight formation, blocking the tunnel. 3 of them. 4. No, 6. And in the center, a guard with a face shield raised a hand. Drop the drive, the guard said calmly. Izuku froze. His mask hid his expression, but his stomach turned. Traitors. All for one's people inside Tartarus. The guard continued, voice steady, almost bored. We know you're there. We know what you took. You can either hand it over, or we remove it from your body. Izuku's Kagun twitched Ender his skin like a beast straining at a leash. Nezu's voice went cold. They're not official. Their comm frequency is scrambled. Aizawa, you're surrounded. Options. Izuku's mind raced. 6 armed guards in a narrow tunnel. No suppressant. Starving. A vault unit behind him closing fast. This was exactly what Tartarus did. It compressed your options until you panicked. And panic got you killed. Izuku forced himself to breathe. He looked at the guards. Their heartbeats were steady. They weren't scared. That meant they had confidence. Confidence meant backup. Or, something worse. The lead guard gestured subtly. 2 of the guards raised their weapons, not guns exactly. They were capture devices, compressed shock nets and restraint launchers. Non-lethal tools. That meant they wanted him alive. They wanted the drive intact. Izuku's hunger whispered, faint but eager. Their meat. Their obstacles. Remove them. Izuku swallowed hard. No. He looked behind him. The tunnel vibrated again. Thud. Closer. He couldn't fight both directions forever. So he chose a third direction. Up. Izuku's Kagun exploded outward, 4 tendrils snapping into existence behind him. The guards flinched despite their training. Izuku slammed 2 tendrils into the ceiling seam and pulled. His body shot upward, feet leaving the floor. He twisted midair and drove a tendril into the wall, using it like a pivot point. He wasn't trying to strike them. He was trying to move. But the guards reacted fast. A shock net fired upward, crackling, spreading wide. Izuku's eyes widened. He yanked himself sideways with his Kagun. The net missed by inches and slapped into the ceiling, sparking. 2 restraint cables shot next, aimed at his torso. Izuku snapped one tendril down and caught the cable mid-flight, wrapping it like a whip wrapping prey. He pulled hard. The guard holding the launcher stumbled forward. Izuku didn't strike. He used the momentum. He swung his body down and slammed both boots into the guard's che. Saint in a controlled kick, hard enough to knock him backward into 2 other guards. They crashed into the wall. No broken bones, Izukuil. But the formation fractured. Aizawa's voice, good. Keep moving. Nezu's voice, urgent. Left wall, maintenance hatch 2 meters behind them. It's your exit. Izuku snapped his gaze to the left wall. A small hatch, half hidden behind pipes. He could reach it if he broke through. The guards recovered fast. One fired a shock baton forward, extended, crackling. Another guard stepped in with a reinforced shield. They weren't amateurs. They were trained to handle quirk criminals. Izuku's Kagun moved on instinct, fast and precise. He drove a tendril into the floor in front of the shield guard, creating a sudden pull point, then yanked. The tendril didn't pull the shield guard off balance. The guard was braced, so Izuku used the pull to launch himself over them. He vaulted high, flipping mid-air with Kagun assist, and landed behind the line, right beside the hatch. His boots hit soft, silent. He grabbed the hatch latch. Locked. Of course it was locked. The lead guard turned, startled. Don't let him. Izuku jammed the mechanical bypass tool into the hatch seam. His hands shook. The hunger made his focus wobble. He forced it steady. Click. A shock baton swung toward his head. Izuku ducked. The baton skimmed his shoulder. Electric pain flashed through his suit. Hatsume's insulation reduced it. But it still burned. Izuku gritted his teeth. His Kagun snapped out and wrapped the attacker's wrist, not crushing, just restraining. He yanked the guard sideways into the wall. The guard slammed and slid down, stunned. Izuku twisted the tool. Another click. The hatch loosened. He shoved it open, and a restraint cable wrapped his ankle from behind. It yanked hard. Izuku's body jerked backward. He hit the floor. His elbow cracked against metal. Pain shot up his arm. His cut earlier screamed. He felt something in his forearm strain. Not broken, but close. It wasn't healing fast enough to ignore. The hunger surged like it smelled weakness. Fuel. You need fuel. Izuku snarled, an ugly sound trapped behind the mask. He planted his palms and pushed, Kagun stabbing into the floor to anchor. He yanked himself forward, fighting the cable's pull. The guards hauled the cable back like fishermen reeling in a catch. Izuku's tendrils flexed. He used them like blades, not to cut flesh, but to cut the cable. One sharp strike. The cable snapped. Izuku rolled, sprang up, and dove through the open hatch. He slammed it shut behind him. The guards shouted, "Someth!" Ing hit the hatch from the other side, hard. The hatch buckled but held. Izuku didn't wait. He crawled forward into the narrow maintenance tunnel, chest heaving. Nezu's voice, "Good. Continue forward for 20 meters. There is a vertical shaft that connects to an upper service lane." Izuku whispered, "The vault unit." Thud. The tunnel shook. Izuku's blood chilled. That wasn't the guards. That was the other predator. Aizawa's voice went hard. "It's breaking through." Izuku crawled faster. The tunnel was tight. His shoulders scraped. His knee hit a pipe joint, pain flashing. He ignored it. Behind him, metal screamed. Not a dramatic explosion. A slow, brutal tearing. The sound of something too strong forcing its way into spaces meant only for humans. Izuku reached the vertical shaft. He looked up. A ladder. A hatch above. He grabbed the rung, and the tunnel behind him exploded inward. Not with fire. With force. A massive arm punched through the maintenance hatch wall like it was paper. Metal bent. Bolts snapped. The vault unit's hand entered the tunnel. Fingers too thick. Knuckles scarred. Skin that looked like it had been stitched from different parts. It grabbed the tunnel edge and pulled. The wall peeled open wider. The unit's head appeared, eyes dull, blank, but tracking. It didn't roar. It didn't snarl. It simply looked at Izuku like a machine seeing a target. Izuku's heart slammed. He climbed. Fast. 2 rungs at a time. His Kagun snapped out, stabbing into the shaft wall to pull him upward faster. The unit reached. Its fingers closed around one of Izuku's tendrils. And for the first time, Izuku felt his Kagun meet something that didn't yield. The unit's grip was iron. It yanked. Izuku's spine screamed. Pain shot through his back like a live wire. His tendril strained. Izuku bit down so hard he tasted blood. The hunger surged at the taste. Izuku didn't care. He yanked back, trying to tear free. The unit pulled harder. Izuku's body slammed against the ladder rungs. His ribs protested. Something cracked. Not fully, but enough to steal breath. Izuku's regeneration tried to start, and lagged. Starving. Too slow. Nezu's voice turned urgent. Sever the tendril. Izuku froze. His Kagun was part of him. Severing it wasn't like dropping a rope. It would hurt. It would drain him. Aizawa's voice. Now. Izuku made the choice. He flexed his Kagun like a muscle and forced the tendril to detach at the base. Pain exploded through his spine. Izuku screamed, but the mask muffled it into a harsh, broken sound. The unit held the detached tendril and stared at it for half a second like it was processing. Then it tossed it aside and reached again. Izuku climbed faster, tears burning behind his eyes. His remaining tendrils whipped and anchored high. He shot upward, bursting through the top hatch, and rolled into an upper corridor. Bright lights stabbed his eyes. He slammed the hatch shut behind him and locked it with trembling fingers. The metal rattled under impact. The unit hit from below. Once, twice. The hatch buckled. Izuku stumbled backward, chest heaving. He clutched his side where his ribs hurt. His body tried to heal. It wasn't fast enough. The corridor was open, no cover. Cameras on both ends. He'd escaped one trap into another. Nezu's voice, "You're in an active service lane. Cameras will catch you in 9 seconds if you stay in the open. Aizawa, move, now." Izuku's mind spun. He was no longer a ghost. He was a target in a hallway. He sprinted forward, Kagun assisting his speed, tendrils stabbing into ceiling seams to pull him in bursts. Cameras rotated. A red indicator light blinked near the corner. Detection. Nezu's voice snapped, "They see you." Izuku didn't slow. If alarms triggered now, it didn't matter. The trap had already sprung. Survival was the mission now. He reached the next junction. And another group of guards appeared. This time, they were official. Different uniforms. Standard Tartarus insignia. They raised weapons, real ones and capture ones, eyes wide. "Intruder!" one shouted. Izuku's heart hammered. These guards didn't know he was here to prevent a breakout. They saw a masked figure with red-black appendages moving like a nightmare. They saw an unknown monster inside their prison. They reacted like trained professionals. Net. A shock net fired across the hall. Izuku's Kagun snapped outward, catching the N at mid-air and flinging it aside, sparks snapping. He didn't strike the guards. He didn't have time. He vaulted over them with Kagun-assisted movement, landing past their formation. A guard swung a baton. Izuku ducked. Another tried to grab his leg. Izuku kicked free, not hard enough to break bone, just enough to escape. Behind him, the hatch buckled again. The vault unit was still coming. Thud, thud. The hallway trembled with each impact like a giant heart beating toward him. Izuku sprinted. Nezu's voice went rapid. "Route adjustment. Head to the left stairwell. It leads to the outer maintenance rim. We can extract you from ocean side." Aizawa cut in, voice hard, "Can you reach it?" Izuku's lungs burned. His ribs screamed. His missing tendril slot throbbed like an amputated limb. His hunger surged again, angry and desperate. And the worst part, his body was starting to feel cold. Not temperature. Metabolic cold. Starvation cold. He whispered, breath ragged, "I can reach it." Recovery girl's voice snapped, "Kid. Your healing is failing. If that thing catches yo," Izuku rasped. He turned another corner. And the corridor dead-ended. A sealed security door. Heavy. Reinforced. Red light above it. Lockdown. Izuku's blood went cold. Nezu's voice tightened. "That door should be open. Someone rerouted the lockdown to trap you here." Aizawa's voice turned dangerous. "Traitors." Izuku spun, looking for another route. To the side, an emergency ladder access hatch. Above, ceiling vent seam. Below, nothing. Behind him, the heavy thudding grew louder. Thud, thud. The vault unit had found the upper service lane. It emerged at the far end of the corridor, massive silhouette filling the space, shoulders scraping walls. Its eyes locked onto Izuku. No anger. No hatred. Just target recognition. Izuku's stomach dropped. He was trapped between a sealed door and a biological weapon designed to kill. His hunger didn't whisper now. It screamed. His vision flickered. For a second, the corridor looked like it was tilting. The lights seemed too bright. The air smelled too good, too full of living people behind walls. Izuku's body trembled. His Kagun flared, all 3 remaining tendrils rising like angry serpents. Aizawa's voice. Sharp. "Midoriya, stay with us." Izuku swallowed hard. He backed toward the sealed door, eyes locked on the unit. The unit took one slow step. The floor trembled. Thud. Izuku's Kagun snapped forward, striking the unit's chest. The impact would have shattered concrete. The unit barely moved. It absorbed the blow like it was nothing. Izuku's chest tightened. Power imbalance. This wasn't a fight. This was a wall walking toward him. Izuku struck again, 2 tendrils this time, hitting joints, neck, trying to destabilize. The unit caught one tendril mid-strike. Its grip tightened. Pain shot through Izuku's spine. It yanked. Izuku flew forward, slammed into the floor, and rolled, ribs screaming. His regeneration crawled. Too slow. He tried to stand. The unit was already there. It raised one arm. Izuku threw a tendril upward, anchoring into the ceiling seam, pulling himself away just as the arm slammed down. The floor dented. Concrete cracked. Not gory, just raw force. Izuku landed awkwardly. Ankle twisting. Pain flashed. He hissed. His body didn't heal it fast enough to ignore. The unit turned, tracking. It didn't need eyes like a human. It followed vibration, heat, motion, any signal. Izuku's mind raced for options. The sealed door wouldn't open. The ladder hatch might. The ceiling vent might. But his body was failing. His hunger was making his thoughts blurry. His senses were turning against him. And the unit was too strong. Aizawa's voice, urgent and controlled, "Midoriya. If you can't escape, you're going to have to fight." Izuku swallowed hard. "I can't beat it," he rasped. Nezu's voice, tight, "Then you must survive it long enough for a gap." Izuku's hands trembled. The unit stepped closer. Izuku's Kagun struck, aiming for the face this time, trying to push it back. The unit caught both tendrils. Its arms flexed. It yanked. Izuku's spine lit up with pain. He felt something tear inside his back, like muscle ripping. His breath turned into a strangled sound. He stumbled forward, forced closer by his own Kagun being used like leashes. The unit leaned in. Izuku smelled it now, antiseptic, muscle, something wrong and chemical. His stomach lurched. Hunger flared. Confused by the scent of flesh that wasn't human. The unit lifted him slightly, using his tendrils as handles. Izuku's boots scraped the floor. He flailed one hand toward the ladder hatch beside the door, too far. The unit's grip tightened. Pain made Izuku's vision spot. Nezu's voice turned urgent, "Midoriya." Izuku couldn't hear the rest. The hunger roared in his head like a siren. His body was starving, injured, and cornered. His mind fractured under the pressure. If he loses, the drive is lost. If the drive is lost, people die. If people die, he failed. If he failed, then what was the point of staying human? Izuku's left eye burned. The Kakugan fully flared beneath the mask, vision sharpening into a cruel clarity. He saw everything. The unit's grip points. The weak seam under its arm. The crack lines in the concrete. The metal latch on the ladder hatch. And the thin, terrifying line between control and survival. Izuku's breathing turned ragged. His Kagun pulsed, swelling slightly, responding to panic and starvation. Aizawa's voice cut through like a hand on his shoulder. "Midoriya, don't break." Izuku's lips trembled. He whispered, voice barely there, "I don't want to." The unit pulled him closer again, almost casually. And Izuku realized the most terrifying truth of all. If he didn't change something, he was going to die here. Not as a hero. Not as a monster. Just as a kid crushed by a system built to hold monsters. His Kagun surged, larger, thicker, more armored at the base, reacting to the stress like a mutation waking up. Nezu's voice, alarmed, "RC Spike, Midoriya. Your cells are." Izuku's head tilted back, a strangled gasp trapped behind the mask. His body wasn't asking permission anymore. It was switching into survival mode. And somewhere deep inside him, something old and monstrous cracked its knuckles and smiled. Thud. The unit held him like a trophy. Izuku's Kagun swelled again, sharper, darker, as if it was trying to wrap around him. Not as limbs. As armor. As a shell. As a centipede-like spine crawling outward from his back. Izuku's mind screamed. Not fear. Not hunger. A single desperate thought. I have to get out. And that thought, pure, raw, absolute, was the spark. Phase 3, the breaking point. Izuku didn't remember deciding. That was the scariest part. 1 second, he was a boy in a mask, ribs screaming, lungs burning. Being pulled forward by his own tendrils like a puppet. The next second, his body made a choice that his mind had been refusing to make since the alley. Survive. The vault unit's grip tightened around the 2 tendrils it held. Izuku felt the pressure travel up his spine like a hand closing around the base of his skull. His vision sharpened violently. The Kakugan flared fully beneath the mask, black sclera, red iris. A predatory focus that made the hallway look too bright and too simple. Every heartbeat behind the walls became a drum. Every breath became scent. Every living thing became information. And the hunger stopped whispering. It stopped negotiating. It became a command. Fuel. Move. Live. Izuku's mouth opened, but no words came out. His brain tried to pull him back. Tried to remember All Might's tired eyes, Recovery Girl's warnings, Aizawa's blunt discipline. But the pressure was too much. Starving. Injured. Trapped. If he stayed, good, he would die. And if he died, the drive would fall into villain hands. And if that happened, people would die. Izuku's heart cracked under the weight of that logic. His RC-like cells surged as if they'd been waiting for permission to become something else. Nezu's voice was distant now, distorted, like it was coming through water. Midoriya, RC Spike, your cells are. Aizawa's voice was sharper, more urgent. Midoriya, stay with us. But Izuku couldn't stay. Not fully. Because his body was already leaving the version of himself that needed comfort and permission and hope. His Kagun pulsed. Then it changed. The base of each tendril thickened. Not like muscle swelling, but like something hard forming, dense, layered, armored. It crawled over his shoulders, his ribs, his spine. A second skin. A shell. Like a living exoskeleton growing outward from his back. The vault unit yanked him closer. Izuku's chest slammed against its forearm. His lungs lost air. His bones screamed. And that was the last clean moment of thought he had. Something inside him snapped. Not his morals. Not his soul. His limit. And when that limit broke, his Kagun exploded into an incomplete Kakuja form. The centipede wakes like a transformation from a superhero movie. It looked like nature taking revenge. A dark, segmented carapace crawled out from Izuku's back and spread over his torso, wrapping his ribs and shoulders in layered plating. The armor wasn't smooth. It was ridged, with overlapping segments like a centipede's spine. Thin, jagged protrusions formed around his forearms like blades, but not clean, not metal-like. More like hardened biological edges designed to tear through obstacles. The 3 remaining tendrils grew thicker and longer, their tips splitting into hook-like points. And around his head, just behind the mask, 2 horn-like ridges rose from the armor, framing him like a nightmare crown. Izuku's breath came out wrong. Not a roar. A broken gasp that sounded like someone trying not to scream. The vault unit froze for the first time. Not fear. Recognition. It stared at Izuku's changed form as if its simple internal logic had updated. Target has evolved. Threat level increased. Izuku's body twisted. Faster than his starving mind could track. The armor moved with him like it belonged. The unit still held his tendrils. So Izuku used that. He yanked. Not to free himself. To pull the unit off balance. The unit's weight was massive. But Izuku's new Kakuja-enhanced Kagun wasn't pulling with human muscle anymore. It pulled with monstrous leverage. The unit's torso shifted. Its feet slid half an inch. That half-inch mattered. Izuku slammed his armored shoulder into the unit's chest. The impact boomed through the corridor like a dull thunder. Concrete cracked beneath the unit's heels. It staggered back 1 full step. Izuku didn't stop. He moved like a creature that had forgotten what hesitation felt like. His tendrils whipped, not in wild flailing, but in precise, brutal strikes. 1H. Ooked the unit's left arm and yanked it outward. 1 stabbed into the wall behind the unit, anchoring and creating torque. 1 slammed into the unit's knee joint, hard enough to force a bend. The unit tried to counter with raw strength. It swung a fist. Izuku ducked under it with unnatural speed, armor scraping the floor. The fist hit the wall behind him. The wall dented. Izuku didn't react like a kid being hunted. He reacted like a predator with a single goal. Break the thing that can break you. Aizawa's voice came through the calm line, urgent and sharp. Midoriya. Control. Control. Izuku didn't hear the words the way he normally would. He heard them like distant noise. Like someone shouting from outside a storm. Nezu's voice was strained. He's in incomplete Kakuja state. Cognitive function compromised. Recovery Girl's voice sounded like panic she was trying to disguise as anger. Don't let him eat anything. Izuku's mask hid his mouth, but his jaw clenched hard enough that his teeth ached. Eat. That word landed. Not as a warning. As an instruction his body liked. The hunger surged. The scent of the vault unit, chemical muscle, wrong flesh, hit Izuku's nose like gasoline. His stomach twisted. Fuel. Izuku's armor tightened around his chest like it wanted to squeeze him into a single purpose. The unit swung again. Izuku's tendrils caught the arm mid-swing and stopped it. Not completely. But enough. Then Izuku drove an armored forearm into the unit's elbow joint. There was a sharp crack, not gory, just mechanical damage. The unit's arm bent wrong. It didn't scream. It didn't feel pain like a person. It just recalibrated and attacked again. Izuku's head tilted slightly. His Kakugan focus narrowed. He stopped thinking of it as a person-shaped thing. He thought of it as a wall that moved. Walls didn't deserve mercy. Walls deserved to be broken. 2. The fight turns into a storm. The corridor became a blur of force and movement. Izuku's Kakuja armor moved like it was alive, segmenting and shifting as he struck. The vault unit was strong, stronger than anything Izuku had ever fought. It caught one tendril and yanked, trying to pull Izuku into a crushing grip. Izuku let it. He used the pull to launch himself forward, armor first, slamming into the unit's chest again. The impact drove the unit backward toward the sealed security door. Izuku didn't want the door. He wanted space. He wanted out. He wanted the drive safe and his body alive. He struck again, tendrils hammering the unit's legs, arms, shoulders, creating imbalance, forcing it to react. The unit grabbed him once, hands closing around Izuku's armored torso. Pressure spiked. Izuku's ribs screamed under the armor. He felt bone strain. His regeneration crawled, too slow. The unit tightened. Izuku's vision flickered. For a fraction of a second, the human part of him returned, terrified. I'm going to be crushed. Then the hunger drowned it again. Izuku's tendrils stabbed into the unit's back, into seams in the stitched muscle, creating anchor points. He pulled hard. The tendrils tore free with raw strength. Again, no gore focus, just the brutal mechanics of tearing through something engineered. The unit's grip loosened slightly. Izuku drove his armored knee into the unit's stomach. The unit folded. Izuku swung his body, using tendrils and armor like a wrecking ball, slamming the unit sideways into the wall. The wall cracked. The unit rebounded. Still moving. Still fighting. Izuku's breathing came out harsh behind the mask. His mind was jagged now, thoughts snapping in fragments. Drive safe. Escape. Kill obstacle. Fuel. Move. Aizawa's voice returned, louder. Midoriya, listen to me. You are not a weapon. You are a student. Izuku's head jerked slightly, like the words scratched at him. Student. Hero. Boy. The Kakuja didn't care, but something small inside him did. The vault unit lunged. Izuku responded faster than thought. His tendrils formed a cage around the unit's torso, wrapping and tightening like restraints made of muscle. Then the armor on Izuku's back extended, segments unfolding like an insect spine, forming a partial tail-like extension that slammed into the unit's head. The unit's head snapped sideways. It staggered. Izuku saw the opening, and the hunger screamed. Now, Izuku moved. He drove both armored forearms into the unit's chest and pushed. Not a shove. A full body thrust powered by Kagun anchors and Kakuja mass. The unit stumbled back toward the sealed security door. Izuku pushed again. The unit hit the door. The reinforced door dented outward slightly under the impact. Izuku didn't stop. He shoved, hammered, crushed, using the unit as a battering ram. The door's red light flickered. The lock mechanisms groaned. Nezu's voice snapped through the calm line. He's forcing the door. Midoriya, that door is external lockdown. If you breach it, you might create an alarm cascade. Izuku didn't care. Alarms were already inevitable. He needed exit. He needed air. He needed. The door buckled. A loud metallic groan echoed. Then the lock failed with a heavy clunk. The door slid open halfway, grinding. Cold air rushed from the other side. Izuku's Kakuja armor flared as if it tasted freedom. The vault unit lurched, still trying to attack. Izuku struck once more, hard, sending it tumbling through the half-open doorway. The unit hit the floor on the other side. It tried to rise. Izuku stepped forward, and paused, because the smell hit him. The vault unit's damaged body, wrong flesh, wrong chemistry, smelled like meat. Not appetizing, not delicious, but usable. Fuel. Izuku's hunger surged violently, overwhelming. His throat tightened. His jaw clenched. The Kakuja armor tightened like it wanted to drag him forward. Eat, eat, eat. Recovery GI. RL's voice screamed through the calm line. Midoriya, don't you dare. Aizawa's voice was harsh, almost desperate. Midoriya, look at me, look at me. Izuku's head tilted, confused. He couldn't look at Aizawa. Aizawa wasn't here. Just a voice. A voice didn't stop hunger. The vault unit twitched on the floor. Its fingers scraped. Stiat. Eat it so it doesn't rise. Eat it so you recover. Eat it so you live. Izuku took one step forward. Then another. His hands shook. Not fear. Craving. And in that moment, the last thin thread of Izuku's humanity tried to pull him back. Not with logic, with memory. He saw Bakugo's face when he laughed at him. He saw All Might offering him hope. He saw his mother crying. He saw Recovery Girl's stern eyes. He heard his own whispered rope. I don't kill. I don't eat people. But the vault unit wasn't a person. That thought slipped into his mind like a knife. Not a person. Not a person. Not. The Kakuja moved. Not fully under Izuku's control. His armor expanded IGHTLY around his jawline as if his body wanted to bite. Izuku's breath became ragged. And then, he crossed the line. The line he promised he wouldn't cross. Izuku lunged. Not toward the unit's head or throat. Toward its torso, where the smell was strongest. His tendrils pinned it, holding it down like a hunter holding prey. The unit fought, jerking, trying to rise. Izuku's armor slammed down, crushing its movement. He tore a section of the unit's outer tissue, more like ripping hardened muscle plating than flesh. No gore focus. Just the brutal fact. He tore it. And he consumed it. The taste was wrong, chemical, bitter. But his body reacted instantly. Warmth surged through his limbs like power returning to dead batteries. His chest loosened. His ribs screamed less. His skin tingled as regeneration kicked in faster. His Kakuja armor hummed with satisfaction. Fuel. More. Izuku's mind fractured further, because the relief was immediate. Because it worked. Because it made survival easier. And that was terrifying. The vault unit convulsed once, then went still, finally unable to continue. Izuku stopped chewing. His breath came fast. His hands trembled. And then reality returned in a brutal wave. Not fully. But enough to make him realize what he had done. He staggered back. His tendrils loosened. The Kakuja armor began to recede slightly, as if the immediate survival need had been satisfied. Izuku's throat tightened. His stomach lurched. He pressed a hand to his mask like he could wipe the taste out of his mouth. His vision blurred. He heard Aizawa's voice, low and furious. Midoriya, what did you do? Izuku didn't answer. He couldn't. Because if he answered, he'd have to admit it out loud. Nezu's voice was tight, controlled, but not calm. The unit is neutralized. Midoriya, status. Are you conscious? Izuku's knees buckled. He caught himself against the wall. His body felt stronger now. But his mind felt like it had been punched. Because the relief was still there in his muscles. Because his regeneration was humming again. Because the monster inside him was satisfied. Izuku whispered, voice cracked. He couldn't finish. He couldn't say I ate it. He couldn't say it helped. He couldn't say I wanted more. He stumbled forward through the breached doorway, leaving the vault unit behind. Alarms began to blare now, distant, rising, finally loud enough to shake the air. Red lights flashed down the corridor. Security protocols escalating. Izuku's Kakuja armor was still partially on him, receded but not gone, like a dangerous reminder clinging to his skin. He moved. Not as a ghost. As a nightmare running through a prison. The centipede armor recedes, and shame takes its place. As Izuku ran, the Kakuja armor began to pull back. Not fully. But enough that he could feel his normal suit fabric again beneath the plates. The horn-like ridges shrank. The segmented spine tightened. His tendrils thinned slightly, still stronger than before, but less monstrous. His breathing steadied. His ribs healed more. His ankle stopped throbbing. He was physically recovering, and mentally collapsing. Because now that the immediate survival crisis had passed, the human part of him finally caught up and screamed. You did it. You crossed the line. You can't undo it. Izuku's eyes burned behind the mask. Tears mixed with sweat. He ran anyway, because stopping meant being captured. And being captured meant losing the drive. He reached a junction where the corridor split into two paths. Nezu's voice came urgently. Left. That route leads to a service stairwell that connects to the outer maintenance rim. Extraction path is reopening, All Might is coordinating. Izuku's throat tightened at All Might's name. He couldn't face him. Not after this. He turned left. His footsteps were silent, but the alarms were loud enough now that silence didn't matter. He sprinted, Kagun assisting. Guards appeared ahead, official ones this time, shouting, forming lines. Izuku didn't fight them head-on. He vaulted over them, using ceiling anchors, slipping past like a shadow with teeth. A guard fired a net. Izuku ripped through it with Kagun strength enhanced by Kakuja residue. No time, no mercy, no killing, just escape. He reached the stairwell, he slammed through the door. And the moment it shut behind him, he leaned against the wall, breathing hard. The stairwell was empty. For a brief moment, there was only the sound of his own breath. And the taste in his mouth. Izuku pressed his forehead against the cold concrete. His hands shook. He whispered, voice broken. I didn't want to. His stomach twisted. His body had wanted it. That was the truth he couldn't escape. He slid down the wall, sitting on the stair. The drive sat secure in his suit pocket, a hard reminder that the mission mattered. But the cost was inside him. Aizawa's voice came through softer now, still firm. You're alive. Izuku whispered, I ate it. Silence. A long, heavy silence. Then Aizawa spoke, voice low and brutally honest. I know. Izuku's throat tightened. Does that make me? Aizawa cut him off. No. Izuku blinked, startled. Aizawa's voice stayed steady. It makes you someone who got pushed into a corner and survived. Quote. Izuku's eyes burned. But, Aizawa added, if you let yourself enjoy it, then you'll lose. Izuku swallowed hard. He didn't answer. Because he couldn't say, I didn't enjoy it, honestly. He had hated it. But his body had felt relief. And that scared him more than anything. Nezu's voice came quietly, almost gentle. Midoriya, you have the drive. That is what matters right now. You can process the rest when you are safe. Izuku's hands tightened. Safe. He wasn't sure he would ever feel safe inside his own skin again. But he stood. He forced his legs to move. He started climbing the stairs. Toward extraction. Toward daylight. Phase 3, the breaking point. The stairwell smelled like concrete and cold metal. It should have been comforting, clean, empty, controlled. But Izuku couldn't stop tasting Tartarus. Not the air, not the disinfectant, the aftertaste. His body had already started healing again. His ribs felt tighter, less fragile. His ankle didn't throb. The torn sensation in his back had dulled. The RC-fueled warmth was still moving through his limbs like a borrowed battery charge. His mind, however, felt like it had been dropped from a height. Every few steps up the stairs, the memory flashed, the vault unit pinned, the scent, the relief, the line crossing. Izuku swallowed hard behind the mask. The breathing filter hummed like it was trying to be helpful. It wasn't. Outside the stairwell door, alarms screamed. Red lights strobed through the narrow window like a heartbeat in emergency mode. Nezu's voice came through, calm but urgent. Quote, service stairwell connects to outer maintenance rim in 3 levels. Proceed. Extraction team is repositioning. Aizawa's voice followed immediately, lower. Don't stop moving. Izuku wanted to stop moving. Because moving made his body feel strong, and strength reminded him of what he'd used it for. But he climbed anyway, step by step, forcing his mind to stay on something simple. Drive. Safe. Get out. No more lines crossed. He reached the next landing and pushed the door. Hallway lights hit him. The corridor beyond was chaos, not in the messy sense, but in the controlled emergency sense. Guards sprinted past with rifles and restraint tools. Drones buzzed overhead. A loudspeaker barked warnings and commands in a flat automated voice. Intruder alert. Lockdown protocol active. All personnel report. Izuku's instincts screamed to hide, but stealth was dead now. The prison knew he existed. Now it was about timing. Nezu's voice. Move along the upper rim corridor. Avoid central intersection. There will be a service access door at the end, marked blue. That leads directly to outer maintenance rim. Izuku moved. He stayed high when possible, using Kagun anchors to pull himself along ceiling seams in fast, controlled bursts. But his Kagun was different now. It wasn't fully normal. Even receding, it felt heavier. Stronger. More eager. Like it remembered the Kakuja armor and wanted it back. Izuku clenched his jaw. No. He passed above a guard squad. One looked up and saw him, a blur of black suit and red-black tendrils. The guard shouted, contact. Restraint launchers fired. Izuku swung away, tendrils slicing the cables mid-flight. He didn't strike the guards. He didn't have time, and he didn't want to. He was a shadow with a drive in his pocket and shame in his chest. He reached the first intersection. Guards were flooding it, forming a perimeter. Nezu's voice sharpened. Alternate route. Left service lane, now. Izuku veered left, dropping from the ceiling into a narrow side passage and sprinting. The alarms echoed here too, but less intense. The lights flickered slightly, emergency power rerouting. Izuku's breathing came harder. His mouth felt dry again. Not full starvation yet, but the borrowed fuel from the vault unit wasn't infinite. His stomach twisted with a sick warning, his body was still hungry. Always hungry. Izuku pushed the thought away and ran. He reached the blue-marked service door Nezu described. He slammed into it and yanked. Locked. Of course. Nezu's voice. Manual override panel. To your right. Izuku snapped his gaze to the panel box. He moved to it, pried it open with the bypass tool, and began the sequence Nezu fed him. Quick instructions, precise. Left switch down. Rotate dial to 7. Press red. Izuku did it. The lock clicked. The door popped slightly. Izuku exhaled sharply, relief in his chest. He shoved the door, and the corridor behind him exploded with noise. Stop. Hands up. Izuku turned. 2 guards at the far end of the side passage. Official. Armed. Eyes wide. They weren't traitors. They weren't villains. They were doing their job. And to them, Izuku looked like a nightmare that had broken into Tartarus. One guard raised a restraint launcher. The other raised a rifle, not lethal rounds, likely quirk-suppressing impact ammo or stun rounds, but still dangerous. Izuku's heart slammed. He could fight. He could rip through them. He could. No. He didn't want more lines crossed. He didn't want to harm people who were just afraid. Izuku's Kagun rose reflexively, tendrils curling behind him. The guards flinched, but they didn't lower their weapons. Drop. One shouted, voice cracking slightly. Izuku's mind raced. If he hesitated, they'd fire. If they fired and hit him, he might flinch, lose control, hurt them. Aizawa's voice cut in, hard and immediate. Move. Don't negotiate. Nezu. Door is open. Exit now. Izuku didn't argue. He whipped one tendril forward, not at the guards, at the ceiling panel above them. It slammed, breaking loose a sheet of insulation and dust. The debris fell in a sudden cloud. The guards coughed, eyes watering, momentarily blinded. Izuku sprinted through the blue door and slammed it behind him. He locked it. Then he ran. The outer maintenance rim. The outer maintenance rim wasn't a hallway. It was a brutal strip of infrastructure exposed to the ocean air. Metal walkway. Guard rails. Utility pipes. Emergency ladders. The wind slapped Izuku's suit like an angry hand, and the cold air hit his face through the mask filter like it wanted to strip him down. Beyond the railing, the sea churned black under strobing emergency lights. And behind him, Tartarus screamed. Sirens. Radios. Boots. Distant shouting. Izuku ran along the rim, staying low. He could see searchlights sweeping across the outer walls. He could hear drones buzzing overhead. Nezu's voice, proceed to extraction point. 50 meters ahead, there will be a lowered cable line. Izuku's lungs burned. He pushed forward. Then, a violent crash shook the walkway. Izuku stumbled, catching himself. The sound came from above, one of the internal corridors. Metal groaned. Something heavy impacted a wall. Then a second crash. Izuku's stomach dropped. That wasn't guards. That was the vault unit. Or worse, something like it. Aizawa's voice went tight. It's loose. Nezu, we're seeing internal structural disturbance. It may have breached containment routes. Increase speed. Izuku ran faster. Wind tore at him. His Kagun anchored and pulled, boosting his speed like grappling hooks. He was so close. Extraction point. Escape. Then he heard it. A scream. Not an alarm. Not a guard command. A human scream, sharp with pain and fear. It came from ahead, around the next bend on the rim walkway. Izuku's feet slowed instinctively. Aizawa's voice snapped instantly. Don't. Nezu's voice, Midoriya. Do not deviate. You have the drive. Izuku's throat tightened. He took one step toward the bend anyway. Because that scream didn't sound like a villain. It didn't sound like a traitor. It sounded like someone who was about to die. Izuku rounded the corner, and saw the source. A guard, young, maybe early 20s, pinned on a collapsed section of piping and debris. A thick pipe had snapped loose during the internal impacts and had fallen across the walkway, crushing the guard's leg and trapping him against the railing. Blood wasn't pooling dramatically. The suit was reinforced, but the guard's face was pale. His breathing was frantic. His hands scrabbled against the metal uselessly. He looked up and saw Izuku. His eyes widened. Terror. Not because he recognized a villain. Because he saw a masked figure with dark red tendrils and centipede-like armor residue still clinging to his shoulders. Don't. The guard gasped, voice shaking. Don't come closer. He thought Izuku was there to finish him. Izuku froze. His body's instincts moved first. A pinned, helpless human. Weakness. Blood smell. Easy. The hunger rose like a wave. Izuku's stomach clenched. His throat tightened. He could smell the guard's blood, faint, metallic, real. His RC-starved cells recognized it immediately like a starving man recognizing food. The monster inside him whispered. Soft and eager. Leave. Extraction. Drive. He slows you down. He's meat anyway. Izuku's hands trembled. The guard tried to push himself back, but he couldn't move. He was pinned. He was trapped. He was terrified. Izuku's chest tightened until it hurt. Aizawa's voice came through the calm line, low and urgent. Midoriya. Keep moving. Nezu's voice. Your mission priority is the drive. We cannot risk you being captured here. Recovery Girl's voice, quieter, sharper with worry, and we can't risk you being tempted. Izuku swallowed hard. He stared at the guard. The guard stared back, eyes wide. Desperate. Izuku's mind split into two voices. One voice was cold survival. Leave. You already crossed a line. Don't cross another. The other voice was small, stubborn, human. If you leave him, you're not a hero. You're just a monster carrying a drive. Izuku's hands clenched. His Kagun stirred behind him, restless. He took one slow step forward. The guard flinched hard, almost sobbing. Please, the guard choked out. I'm not with them. Izuku's throat tightened. He didn't answer. He lowered himself carefully, staying the debris. Pipe weight, heavy. Angle, trapping the leg and hip. Leverage points, railing support, broken bracket. Izuku's mind tried to switch into analysis mode, the mode that used to be his greatest strength. But hunger made the numbers blurry. So he used something simpler. His Kagun. He let two tendrils slide out. The guard's eyes widened further, panic. No. Izuku whispered, voice rough behind the mask. I'm not here to hurt you. The guard stared. He didn't believe him. Why would he? Izuku positioned the tendrils under the pipe, anchoring into cracks in the metal for stability. He kept the tips away from the guard's body. Careful. Controlled. Functional. Aizawa's voice was tight now. Midoriya, you have 10 seconds before patrols sweep this rim. Izuku didn't respond. He exhaled slowly. Then he lifted. The tendrils flexed like hydraulic cables. The pipe rose, slow at first, then steadier. The guard cried out in pain as pressure shifted off his leg. Izuku adjusted immediately, moving the pipe saint enough to free the guard without dragging it and causing more damage. The pipe lifted higher. The guard's legs slid free, trembling. Izuku lowered the pipe carefully, setting it on the railing support where it wouldn't roll back. The guard gasped, clutching his leg. He tried to crawl away, still terrified. Izuku reached out, not with his hand, but with a tendril, placing it gently between the guard and open air, preventing him from crawling off the edge accidentally. Izuku spoke softly, voice shaking. Stay alive. The guard stared at him, stunned. Tears streaked the guard's face, mixing with wind and fear. The guard couldn't finish. Izuku didn't want the word. Monster. Hero. He didn't want any label. He just wanted the guard to live. Izuku stood, and as he did, his stomach twisted violently. The hunger surged now that he'd been close. Now that he'd smelled blood. Now that he'd denied himself. His mouth filled with saliva. His hands trembled. The centipede armor residue tightened, sensing stress. Izuku backed away from the guard, turning toward the extraction point. Nezu's voice was low, almost relieved. You chose. Izuku whispered, voice raw. I had to. Aizawa's voice came quieter, still blunt. That's the only reason you're still you. Izuku's throat tightened. He ran. To the escape that doesn't feel like victory. The extraction point came into view, a cable line lowered along the outer rim, leading down toward the ocean where a stealth craft waited low in the water. Nezu's voice, attach and descend. Now. Izuku grabbed the cable clamp and snapped it onto his harness. He glanced back. The guard he saved was still there, breathing hard, staring at him like he'd seen a ghost cry. Izuku didn't wave. He couldn't. He stepped onto the cable and began descending, hand over hand. Kagun assisting to speed the drop. Wind whipped. Ocean spray hit his suit. The cold air felt like punishment. As he descended, he heard distant impacts again inside Tartarus, heavy, violent. The vault unit was moving somewhere behind those walls. Maybe it was still hunting. Maybe it was tearing through corridors. Maybe it had been designed to do exactly that in the event of intrusion. Izuku reached the waterline. A stealth craft surfaced, a dark shape rising from black water. A hatch opened. A gloved hand reached out. Izuku grabbed it and pulled himself inside. The hatch sealed. The craft dipped underwater immediately, muffling the sirens into a distant echo. For a moment, there was only the hum of the craft and Izuku's ragged breathing. He sat on the floor, back against the wall. His hands trembled. His body was tired. His mind was worse. Nezu's voice came through, quieter now. Extraction successful. We have the drive. Izuku didn't answer. He reached into his suit pocket and touched the drive, confirming it was still there. Then his hand moved to his mouth. He swallowed hard. The taste was still there. Chemical meat. Relief. Shame. Aizawa's voice spoke softly, not comforting, but grounded. You saved the guard. Izuku whispered, voice breaking. I ate the Nomu. A long silence. Then Aizawa said something that hit Izuku harder than any punch. And you still saved the guard anyway. Izuku's eyes burned. Tears slid down his cheeks inside the mask. He didn't wipe them. He didn't deserve to. Nezu's voice followed, gentle but firm. That choice is the difference. That is what we will build on. Quote. Izuku's chest tightened. Build on. Like this wasn't the end. Like he had to keep living with this body. With this hunger. With this line he'd crossed. Izuku stared at the floor. His voice was barely audible. What am I now? Aizawa answered without hesitation. A hero, Aizawa said. A damaged one, but a hero. Izuku's throat tightened. He didn't believe it yet. But the guard's terrified eyes behind him. The fact that he'd still lifted the pipe. That was proof his actions could still be human even when his body wasn't. The craft continued forward, carrying him away from Tartarus. Away from the screaming alarms. Away from the prison, but not away from himself. Because the real prison, the hunger, the fear of losing control, the centipede armor waiting in his cells, was still inside him. And it would follow him all the way back to UA. Phase 4, Resolution. The first thing Izuku noticed when he got back to UA was how normal everything smelled. Clean floors, old wood polish, paper, chalk dust, no saltwater, no disinfectant-soaked concrete, no blood scent trapped in metal corridors. Normal. And somehow that made it worse. Because his body still wasn't normal. The stealth craft surfaced in a hidden canal access point under UA's secured grounds, one of those emergency routes most students never even knew existed. The moment the hatch opened, cold night air rushed in. And Izuku climbed out like a ghost crawling back into a world that didn't know he'd died a little. Nezu was waiting, not in a suit, not in some dramatic, principal pose. Just Nezu, small and calm. Standing under a floodlight with a security team and recovery girl, who looked like she hadn't slept since the mission began. Aizawa stood slightly behind them, hands in his pockets. Posture loose in the way that meant he was anything but. Izuku stepped onto the dock. His knees wobbled. Not from exhaustion, his body had recovered more than it deserved. From the weight of what he carried. Not the drive, the memory. Recovery girl moved first. She walked right up to him and grabbed his mask by the chin like she was about to scold a child who tracked mud into a clinic. Take it off, she snapped. Izuku hesitated. His mouth still tasted wrong. Like if anyone saw his face, they'd see what he'd done written on his skin. Recovery girl didn't wait for permission. She yanked the mask off. Cold air hit Izuku's cheeks. His hair stuck to his forehead with sweat. His eyes were red, not the Kakugan now, just human red from crying inside a mask. Recovery girl's gaze flicked to his pupils. Both human, she muttered. Good. Then she slapped a small scanner against his neck, checked the reading, and hissed through her teeth. Your RC activity is still elevated, she said. Not spiking, but unstable. Izuku swallowed. I'm fine. Recovery girl's eyes flashed. No, she said, deadly calm. You are functioning. Don't insult me by calling that fine. Izuku flinched. Nezu stepped forward, voice gentle and precise. Midoriya, the drive. Izuku's hand moved automatically to his suit pocket. The casing clicked against the magnetic clasp as he pulled it out. He held it with both hands like it weighed more than it should. Nezu didn't take it immediately. He looked at Izuku first. Not like a scientist looking at a specimen. Like a leader looking at a student who'd walked through fire. You succeeded, Nezu said softly. Izuku's throat tightened out. Nezu took it, carefully, and handed it to a security officer who sealed it inside a hardened container with multiple locks. Awa watched the entire exchange without speaking. When the container clicked shut, Izuku expected relief. He expected some part of him to loosen. Instead, his stomach twisted. Because success didn't erase the taste in his mouth. Success didn't rewind time. Success didn't make him feel human again. Recovery girl grabbed his wrist. Medical wing, she said. Now, Izuku didn't resist. He didn't argue. He let himself be guided. Because if he tried to make decisions right now, he didn't trust what version of himself would answer. As they walked, the floodlights behind them painted long shadows on the concrete. Izuku couldn't stop staring at his own shadow. Because it looked like him again. No armor. No centipede silhouette. Just a boy. But he knew what lived under the skin. And that knowledge followed him like a second shadow. Quarantine. They didn't take him to the usual infirmary. They took him to a sealed wing below it, an isolation room built like a cross between a hospital ward and a containment cell. Not cruel. Not prison. But careful. Glass observation panels. Soft lighting. Medical equipment. Reinforced door. Multiple locks. A room designed for someone who could become dangerous without wanting to. Recovery girl pushed him onto the bed. Sit, she ordered. Izuku sat. His hands trembled. Recovery girl snapped gloves on and began checking him like she was angry at his body for existing. Bruises. Micro-fracture residue. Strain around the back where his tendril detached. Elevated metabolic markers. She clucked her tongue in irritation. Your healing sped up, she said, eyes narrowing. When? Izuku stared at his hands. Recovery girl's voice sharpened. When, Midoriya? Izuku's throat tightened. During the fight, he whispered. Recovery girl stared at him. Nezu stood near the glass panel, quiet. Aizawa leaned against the wall inside the room now, arms folded. Recovery girl's voice lowered. What did you consume? Izuku's chest tightened like a fist closed around his ribs. He could lie. He could say nothing. But then Stain's words returned. Don't become what you hate. Izuku exhaled shakily. The unit, he said. The Nomu. Recovery girl's jaw clenched. For a moment, Izuku thought she might scream. Instead, she closed her eyes like she was counting to 10. When she opened them, her voice was terrifyingly controlled. You did exactly what I told you not to do. Izuku whispered, I know. Recovery girl jabbed a finger at his chest. And you're alive because it worked. Izuku flinched. Recovery girl's eyes softened by a hair. Which is why it's dangerous, she said. Because your body just learned a shortcut. Izuku's hands clenched into fists. Aizawa finally spoke. It was a survival response. Recovery girl snapped her head toward him. And survival responses become habits if you don't treat the cause, she shot back. Then her gaze returned to Izuku, sharp as a scalpel. You're not leaving this room until we stabilize your nutrition plan. Izuku swallowed. What does that mean? Nezu answered calmly. It means, Midoriya, we must ensure you never again reach the point where your body decides to solve hunger in the fastest way possible. Izuku's stomach turned. He stared at the floor. So I'm locked up. Nezu's ears tilted slightly, not offended, but attentive. No, Nezu said gently. You are being protected. And so is everyone else. Izuku's throat tightened. It felt like prison anyway. Because the bars weren't metal. They were inside him. Recovery girl injected something into his arm. Nutrient stabilizer, paired with the plasma-based solution she'd mentioned earlier. Warmth spread slowly. The hunger dulled. Not gone. Just quieter. Enough that Izuku could think without the whisper pressing its mouth against his ear. Recovery girl's voice softened, only slightly. You're going to hate me for this, she said, but we're building you a schedule. Strict. No improvising. No skipping. Izuku nodded faintly. He deserved strict. He deserved controlled. He deserved anything that kept him from becoming the thing he feared. Aizawa watched him quietly. Then he said, low and blunt. You're going to sleep. After that, we talk. Izuku's eyes stung. He didn't know if he wanted to talk. Talking meant saying the words out loud. Words made things real. But he nodded anyway. Because Aizawa didn't offer comfort he couldn't guarantee. He offered structure. And right now, structure was the only thing keeping Izuku from falling apart. The talk he didn't want. He slept for some amount of time. He didn't know if it was hours or minutes. In the middle of it, he dreamed of corridors and teeth and centipede shells crawling over his skin. When he woke, the room was dimmer, the lights set to a soft evening glow. Recovery Girl was gone. Nezu was gone. Only Aizawa remained, sitting in a chair near the bed, scarf draped loosely around his neck, eyes tired in a way that made Izuku's chest ache. Izuku sat up slowly. Aizawa didn't speak immediately. He waited until Izuku's breathing steadied. Then he said something that cut through all the shame like a clean blade. Tell me what happened. Izuku swallowed hard. He tried to start with facts. The drive was in the partition. The unit was waiting. Traitors triggered lockdown. I lost suppressants. His voice cracked. Aizawa didn't interrupt. Izuku's hands trembled. I snapped. Aizawa's eyes stayed on him, unblinking. You went Kakuja. Izuku nodded, throat tight. And then, Izuku whispered, I didn't think. He couldn't say it again. Even with Recovery Girl, he'd said it like it was a report. With Aizawa, it felt personal. Like confessing something that made him unworthy. Aizawa's voice was quiet. You ate it. Izuku closed his eyes. Tears slipped out anyway. He hated that he was crying. Like crying could wash it off. Aizawa didn't scold him for crying. He didn't pat his shoulder either. He just spoke, firm, real. Look at me. Izuku forced himself to open his eyes. Aizawa's gaze was tired, but steady. You're not the first student who's done something ugly in a corner, Aizawa said. And you won't be the last. Izuku's chest tightened. But Aizawa cut him off gently, for once. Listen, he said. A monster doesn't feel guilt. A monster feels entitlement. Izuku blinked. Aizawa continued, voice low. You're guilty because you still have a standard. You still have a line. That means you're still you. Izuku swallowed hard. But what if next time I don't stop? He whispered. What if the hunger wins? Aizawa's eyes narrowed slightly. Then we build systems so there isn't a next time, like that, he said. We don't rely on willpower. We rely on planning. Izuku stared at him. Aizawa's voice stayed hard but not cruel. You're going to train, not just fighting. Control. Quote. Izuku swallowed. Control training sounded like torture. But he needed it. Aizawa leaned forward slightly. And you're going to accept something now, Midoriya. Izuku's throat tightened. What? Aizawa's voice was blunt. You can't be All Might. Izuku flinched like he'd been slapped. Aizawa didn't soften it. All Might is daylight, he said. He's a symbol people look at and feel safe. Your existence, your biology, will make people afraid, no matter what you do. Izuku's chest tightened, something like grief rising. All his life he'd dreamed of being that shining thing. Aizawa's voice lowered. But that doesn't mean you can't be a hero. Izuku's eyes stung. Aizawa continued. You can be the hero that stops what daylight can't reach. Izuku's breath hitched. The shadows, Ia nodded once. You already proved it, he said. You saved that guard on the rim when you could have run. That choice matters. Izuku's hands trembled. He whispered, he was terrified of me. Aizawa's voice was quiet. Good, he said. Then you know what it feels like to be judged by appearance. Use it. Don't let it twist you. Izuku swallowed hard. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a problem. Aizawa stood. He paused at the door. Then he added, almost like an afterthought, but not really. All Might wants to see you. Izuku's stomach dropped. I can't. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. You can, he said simply. And you will. Then he left. The door clicked shut. Izuku sat alone in the dim quarantine room, staring at the glass panel like it might open into a different life. He pressed his hands to his face. The hunger was quiet right now. But quiet wasn't gone. Quiet was waiting. All Might's eyes. All Might didn't come in wearing his hero smile. He came in as Toshinori. Thin, tired, gentle. He stood in the doorway for a moment like he wasn't sure he had the right to enter. Izuku's chest tightened instantly, because seeing Toshinori reminded him of everything he wanted to be, and everything he feared he couldn't be. All Might stepped closer. His eyes fell on Izuku's hands, still trembling slightly. Then his eyes lifted to Izuku's face. And they softened. "My boy," Toshinori said quietly. Izuku's throat tightened. I got the drive." Toshinori nodded. "I know," he said. "You saved lives." Izuku flinched. "Don't," Izuku whispered. "Don't say it like that." Toshinori's brows knit. Izuku's voice cracked. I ate it." The words dropped into the room like something heavy breaking through thin ice. Toshinori didn't recoil. He didn't look disgusted. He closed his eyes briefly, like he was absorbing pain that wasn't his. Then he opened them again. And his voice was quiet. "I am sorry," he said. Izuku blinked, confused. Why are you sorry?" Izuku whispered. "It's my." Toshinori stepped closer. "Because I asked you to be a hero in a world that will corner you," he said. "And I wasn't there to pull you out." Izuku's eyes stung. Toshinori continued, voice trembling with sincerity. "You should never have been forced to choose between your humanity and survival." Izuku's chest tightened until it hurt. He didn't want pity. He wanted absolution. Toshinori wasn't offering a clean excuse. He was offering something harder. Understanding. Izuku whispered. I felt relief. Toshinori's eyes widened slightly. Izuku's voice shook. My body, it felt better after. I hated it, but. Toshinori nodded slowly, eyes sad. That is not your fault, he said. Bodies are, honest. Cruelly honest. Izuku swallowed hard. But what if I become? Toshinori cut him off gently. You won't, he said. Izuku blinked. Toshinori's voice gained steel. Not because you're incapable of falling, he said. But because you're the boy who crawled into the dark anyway. And still lifted debris off a guard who was afraid of you. Izuku's throat tightened. Toshinori smiled faintly, not a performance, not a symbol of peace smile. A real, human smile. Humanity is in your actions, he said. Izuku froze. Those were the exact words Izuku had heard earlier from Aizawa's mouth in a different form. Izuku whispered, but my diet. Toshinori shook his head. A hero is not defined by what they are forced to survive on, he said. A hero is defined by what they protect. Izuku's eyes burned. He didn't fully believe it. But he wanted to. Toshinori reached out slowly. Izuku tensed instinctively, then hated himself for tensing. Toshinori's hand rested lightly on Izuku's shoulder. I am proud of you, he said softly. Not because you're strong. Izuku swallowed. Because you are still choosing. Izuku's breath hitched. Choosing. That was the only thing he still trusted. Because everything else, his biology, his hunger, his power, could betray him. But choice was his. Toshinori stepped back. You will not be alone in this, he said. Nezu will plan. Recovery Girl will stabilize you. Aizawa will train you. Izuku's eyes stung. And I, Toshinori said, voice warm and steady, will be here. Even if I cannot fight like I once did. Izuku nodded shakily. He didn't speak, because if he did, he'd break. Toshinori turned to leave. At the door, he paused. One more thing, he said quietly. Izuku looked up. Toshinori's eyes were serious. The world may never accept you in the daylight, he said. But the people who live through the night, will. Then he left. The door clicked shut. Izuku sat in silence, breathing slow. The hunger whispered faintly. But for the first time since Tartarus, the whisper didn't feel like it owned him. It felt like something he could fight. Not with denial. With structure. With purpose. With choice. The news report. 2 days later, still in quarantine, still on a strict nutrient schedule, Izuku sat on the bed with a tablet on low volume. Nezu had insisted he watch. Not as punishment, but as context. You should understand how stories spread, Nezu had said. Especially when you do not control the narrative. Izuku stared at the screen. A news anchor spoke with dramatic urgency. Following an attempted security breach at Tartarus, officials confirmed that a critical data asset remained secure. While details remain classified, Witna. SSES report a masked intruder, seen along the outer maintenance rim during the lockdown, described as having black and red appendages and moving, like a shadow. The screen showed blurry footage, a distant silhouette on the outer rim walkway, wind whipping, alarms flashing. The image was too grainy to identify a face, but the shape of the tendrils was unmistakable. Izuku's stomach twisted. The anchor continued. Unconfirmed reports claim the intruder saved a Tartarus guard pinned by debris before escaping into the ocean. Authorities have neither confirmed nor denied this detail. The screen cut to an interview, an unnamed guard's face blurred, voice altered. "I thought I was dead," the guard said shakily. "I thought it was a monster. But it lifted the pipe. It didn't have to. It was crying." Izuku's throat tightened. Crying. He hadn't realized anyone could tell. The anchor's voice returned. Social media is already calling the unidentified figure the one-eyed hero, due to reports of a glowing red eye. Others have labeled it a vigilante, or something far more dangerous. The screen split into scrolling headlines. Tartarus Shadow, Hero OR Threat. Mystery Entity Saves Guard During Breach. One-eyed, Vigilante Spotted. Izuku lowered the tablet slowly. His hands trembled. He didn't want fame. He didn't want fear. He didn't want any of this. But the world had already begun making a story out of him. Nezu's voice came softly from the doorway. "They'll call you what they need to call you," Nezu said. "Until your actions rewrite their definitions." Izuku looked up. Nezu's eyes were calm. "Are you afraid?" Nezu asked. Izuku swallowed. "Yes," Izuku whispered. Nezu nodded, as if that was the correct answer. "Good," Nezu said. "Fear makes you careful. Care makes you alive." Izuku stared at his hands. "What do I do now?" Nezu's smile was small, almost kind. "You recover," Nezu said. "You train. You learn your limits. You learn your triggers." Izuku's throat tightened. And then, Nezu added. Voice gentle but firm, "You decide what kind of hero you will be." Izuku's chest tightened. Daylight Hero was gone. But, maybe he could still be something else. Something that didn't need applause. Something that didn't need a crowd. Something that could move through dark places and come back anything. Izuku exhaled slowly. He looked at the tablet again, at the blurry silhouette. The one-eyed hero. A name he didn't choose. A shadow the world feared. A monster who lifted a pipe anyway. Izuku whispered, almost to himself. "If they're going to be afraid." He clenched his fist. "Then I'll make sure they're afraid of the right thing." Nezu's eyes softened slightly. Izuku's gaze steadied. He didn't smile. Not yet. But something in his posture changed. Not confidence. Resolve. Because he finally understood the shape of his future. He wouldn't be the symbol of peace. He wouldn't be the shining sun. He would be the thing in the alley that villains don't want to meet. He would be the whisper in the dark that keeps the innocent alive. He would be the shadow that hunts the dark. And if he had to wear a monster's face to protect people, then he would do it. As long as his choices stayed human. Izuku looked toward the reinforced door of his quarantine room. Not like a prison. Like a starting line. He whispered, "Okay." And somewhere deep inside him, the hunger whispered back. But this time, Izuku answered it with something stronger than denial. A plan. A purpose. A promise. Izuku lay back against the padded incline of the Medica.
Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to check out my Patreon too. Until then, take care, we'll see you in the next video.